On the day of the evacuation from the Middle East, my parents and brother refused to board the plane, waiting for the fake heiress to finish touching up her makeup. In war-torn countries, the situation is ever-changing, and every minute delayed increases the risk. Out of necessity, my compatriots and I knocked them out and took them away while they were unprepared. However, the fake heiress was brutally tortured to death by thugs as a result. After returning home, my parents and brother never mentioned the fake heiress. They became even more doting and protective of me. I truly believed I had finally found the familial love I'd always yearned for. That was, until my mother's birthday, when I was happily preparing a gift. My parents and brother conspired to drug me, let them humiliate me before burying me alive. Yao Yao is our only daughter. If it weren't for you vying for favor and abandoning her, how could she have died? Since you're so eager to replace her, go and keep her company in her grave. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the evacuation. A cold sneer escaped me as I watched the anxious faces of my parents, scanning the distance. Since it's her you all want, fine, I'll give you exactly what you're asking for. 1. This is the last evacuation flight. If we don't leave now and stay here, we'll be killed by the mob. The overseas Chinese were all urgently persuading their parents and brother, who were adamant about not letting the plane take off. Yao Yao isn't here yet. Waiting a few more minutes won't kill anyone. Brother Pei Yuan had a cold expression, completely ignoring everyone's anxiety. Just to wait for her. You're putting all of us in danger. Pei Yuan, how can you be so selfish? My deputy was practically going out of his mind with impatience. The other expatriates, driven to a frenzy by the wait, shoved my parents and brother aside when they blocked the path. They all stampeded toward the plane. To everyone's surprise, my brother Pei Yuan's face instantly darkened, and he fired a shot into the air. The crowd instantly screamed in terror. The father stepped forward, radiating the authority of a leader. What? Your lives matter. But does my daughter's life not matter? No one leaves until Yao Yao arrives. How dare you abandon your own people for your own safety? Do you even deserve to be on this plane? Hearing this, my assistant hesitantly looked at me. Teacher, the plane is about to take off. If we don't board now, we might really miss it. I smiled and reassured her not to worry. Then I walked over to my parents and brother, calmly saying, Dad, Mom, brother, you're right. We're all family here, and we can't leave anyone behind. Even if Yao Yao just overslept, we have to bring her with us. Upon hearing this, everyone stared at me in shock. My deputy couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up. Professor, the group's safety comes first. How can you put her ahead of everyone just because she's your family? Pei Yuan's expression twisted in an instant as he punched his deputy and pointed the gun at the crowd. Anyone who dares to say another word, don't blame me for being impolite. After saying that, he fired a shot directly into the ground, and the sparks that flew up made everyone tremble with fear. Seeing the crowd's anger but their inability to speak out, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Then, turning to me with a gentle look, Wan Yue, I knew you weren't that kind of cold and selfish person. I gave a faint smile. Yao Yao is my sister. Of course I wouldn't abandon her. After I spoke, I saw relieved smiles appear on my parents' and brothers' faces, but they don't know that I am a key member of a state secret project. The passengers are also top-tier talents under state protection. In my previous life, I chose not to take the safer private plane in order to evacuate my family together. This time, since they are so eager to wait for the fake heiress Pei Yao, I'll let them have their way. Under the threat of the pistol, no one dared to voice any further objections and could only wait patiently at the airport. Yet, the missiles streaking across the sky from time to time drained the color from everyone's faces. Half an hour later, Pei Yao, wearing flawless full makeup, finally arrived and embraced her parents and brother tightly. Daddy, Mommy, big brother, I just knew you'd wait for me. Seeing her, her parents and brother finally breathed a sigh of relief, but at that very moment, a deafening explosion suddenly rocked the airport. The last plane was struck by a missile and turned into a heap of scrap metal. 2. Seeing their only way out cut off, their compatriots instantly flew into a rage. You're going to be the death of us. Without that plane, we're finished. Why the hell is this bitch so late, and all dressed up? Does she think this is some kind of party? Surrounded by a chorus of angry shouts, Pei Yao's face turned deathly pale. I didn't mean to. I'm just a bit slow at doing my makeup. I never thought it would cause a delay. Seeing the crowd's anger mounting, she dared not say another word and quickly retreated behind her parents and brother. My deputy shot me a slightly displeased glance. Teacher, you've always been calm and rational. How come this time? I patted her shoulder, comforting her. Don't worry too much, everyone. We can wait a bit longer inside the airport. Brother Pei Yuan gently soothed Pei Yao in his arms, letting out a cold snort. What a bunch of idiots. So what if they missed the plane? This riot will be over in no time. The crowd was seething with anger, but they didn't dare say a word, intimidated by the pistol. But just then, a fellow countryman suddenly cried out in panic, I've just received word. The conflict has escalated. That was the last evacuation flight. We can't go home. Are we going to become refugees? Despair and confusion were written on everyone's faces. His older brother, Pei Yuan, snorted with disdain. What a bunch of cowards. There's plenty of food and water in the terminal, enough to last us until the official rescue arrives. With so many of us stranded here, the embassy definitely won't stand by and do nothing. 3. Pei Yuan's words failed to lift everyone's spirits. Seeing the gloomy atmosphere, I reassured everyone that I had already reported the situation at the airport to the embassy. The embassy will coordinate with the military to send a plane for us. Hearing this, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Pei Yao also began to laugh and joke, holding her parents' hands and acting coquettishly. Seeing their family's picture of perfect happiness, looks of disdain appeared on everyone's faces. The assistant quietly pulled me aside. Teacher, did you apply for enough rescue spots with the military? Including them, we need a total of 20 people. I nodded gently. That's right, but I only applied for 19 spots. Hearing this, the assistant first looked puzzled, then seemed to understand something. I ventured in a hushed tone. Does that mean one of us won't be able to board the plane? I glanced at Pei Yao, coddled in our parents' arms, and a cold sneer curled at the corner of my mouth. Don't worry, your spots are guaranteed. As for that one missing seat, we'll just have to see how the four of them decide. Unaware parents and brother were gently looking at Pei Yao. Pei Yuan skillfully adjusted her dress hem. Yao Yao, you are the little princess of the Pei family, and your parents and I will never let you suffer any harm. Watching this tender scene, I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile. I can't help but feel a quiet sense of anticipation. When forced to abandon someone, how would they choose? During the wait for evacuation, everyone was surviving on the resources within the airport. The restless Pei Yao couldn't sit still, constantly sneaking out in search of excitement. She even nearly led the rioters right to them. Yet, her parents and brother only gave her a mild scolding, even praising her for being bold and daring, that is, until the third day. With just 1 hour left before the evacuation, my parents and brother hurried to find me. Wanyue, please save your sister. For I looked up, puzzled. What had Pei Yao done now? The father's face was filled with worry, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Yao Yao has been captured by those thugs. You're the only one who can save her. Go and trade yourself for her. Time is of the essence. Don't ask so many questions. Go now. Mother and brother Pei Yuan nodded in agreement. You never gave a single thought to my safety. I stared coldly at the people before me who called themselves family. Do you have any idea how deranged those thugs are? For the sake of your adopted daughter, Pei Yao, you're willing to cast aside your own flesh and blood. Is that it? Pei Yuan frowned, a flash of impatience in his eyes. Yao Yao isn't like you. She's timid and can't handle hardship. You're stronger than her. You won't get hurt so easily. Stop wasting time with this nonsense. Yao Yao can't wait much longer. As his words hung in the air, the gazes from the crowd were filled with contempt, disgust, and pity for me. His assistant, furious, slammed the table and stood up, pointing at my parents and brother as he began to shout, Are you even human? Just because she's resilient, she deserves this. The teacher is your own flesh and blood. How dare you say such a thing? Pei Yuan retorted coldly. This is a family matter. It's none of your business. Yao Yao is the precious pearl we've cherished since she was a child, while Pei Wanyue has been struggling in the mud since the day she was born. A little hardship means nothing to her. He saw nothing but mockery in my eyes, not a shred of agreement. Pei Yuan's face darkened instantly as he abruptly drew his gun and aimed it at me. Wanyue, don't make me do this. A collective gasp swept through the room. Pei Yuan, have you lost your mind? The teacher is your own sister. The assistant, both furious and frantic, tried to intervene. Without even blinking, Pei Yuan fired a shot at her feet. I quickly shielded the assistant, glaring coldly at the three people before me, all to force me to swap places with that fake heiress. Pei Yao, my own flesh and blood brother, wants me dead, while my birth parents just stand by and watch. Thinking back on my past life, I groveled and fawned over them, desperate for a scrap of their attention and love. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. I promise you, I know that if I don't agree again, Pei Yuan can do anything. 5. When I found Pei Yao, she seemed to have struck some deal with the thugs. When I appeared, she gave me an undisguised look of malice. She's Pei's biological daughter and also very valuable. The thug grinned as he grabbed me and let Pei Yao go. Don't forget to bring the more valuable stuff, or else. Pei Yao's face turned pale, and in a flurry, she nodded and ran straight to the departure hall without looking back. When the thug roughly shoved me, I pulled out the badge that symbolized my identity. A few minutes later, I was back in the departure hall. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw Pei Yao sobbing pitifully in Pei Yuan's arms. I'm so sorry, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been so careless and playful, my sister wouldn't have. Maybe I should go back and try to exchange myself for her. Sob. The onlookers watched the family with contempt. While the deputy was so furious that tears welled up in their eyes, her parents lovingly patted her head. Yao Yao, it's not your fault, your sister did it willingly. Pei Yuan tenderly fixed her slightly messy hair. Yao Yao, as long as you're safe, nothing else matters. The cozy scene of a family made me feel nauseous. In my past life, I spent half a year in the hospital after being hit by a car while trying to save Pei Yao, who insisted on taking a photo for social media in the middle of the road. Yet, my parents and brother never visited me once, only offering a casual remark, isn't it natural for the older sister to protect the younger one? And now, even if the price to bring Pei Yao back is my life, they take it for granted. Seeing me return again, everyone was utterly shocked. My parents and brother just paused for a moment, saying nothing. Soon after, the roar of an airplane echoed across the tarmac. As the evacuation plane arrived, everyone happily headed towards the boarding gate. My parents and brother also shielded Pei Yao and followed the crowd. Just as they were about to board the plane, they were stopped by a soldier. Please wait, we need to verify your identity. As their fellow countrymen boarded the plane one by one, their smiles gradually faded when only the four of them were left. Pei Yuan, Pei Yao. The soldier flipped through the list, his brow furrowed. I'm sorry, but your names are not on the list. 6. There are only 3 empty seats in the cabin, and one of you 4 must stay behind. The 4 of them turned pale instantly upon hearing this. Pei Yao turned to look at me, her eyes full of disbelief. What's going on? I stood at the cabin door, calmly meeting her gaze. There were originally only 16 rescue spots. The extra 3 were barely secured after I pleaded with the military high command. It seems, one of you 4 will have to stay behind tonight. Inside the cabin, all the compatriots struggled to suppress their laughter. Me, my wife, and my son. The soldier nodded in agreement and looked at Pei Yao. All right, you stay and wait for the next rescue team, but be prepared for potential danger. Pei Yao was stunned, looking at me helplessly. In the past, if she had looked at me like that, I would have rushed to help her without a second thought. But now, I just wanted to watch the show. Seeing that I didn't respond, Pei Yao bit her lip in frustration and hesitantly turned to speak to Pei Yuan. Brother, I'll go up first, and then I'll figure out a way to save you right away. Don't. Smack. Before she could finish, Pei Yuan had already slapped her hard across the face. His expression twisted, no longer the gentleness of usual. You bitch, you always say you like me, but now you want to leave me behind and run off on your own. Pei Yao had never suffered such humiliation before. Getting slapped twice in a row, even by Pei Yuan, was something she couldn't accept. She let out a scream and lunged forward, scratching Pei Yuan's face bloody. Pei Yuan, you spineless coward. What have I ever done to wrong you that you would treat me like this? Taking advantage of Pei Yao's momentary distraction, Pei Yuan darted onto the plane. Amid Pei Yao's screams, the plane slowly took off. This aircraft can actually carry more than 20 people. Who would have thought that a small provocation would completely tear them apart? Just 10 minutes after they were as close as family. 7. The interior of the military aircraft is brightly lit. The roar of the engine was deafening. Mom, Dad, and my brother were seated in a corner. The other overseas Chinese around them kept their distance, they were met with occasional looks of disdain. If it weren't for their own self-restraint, they'd probably spit on her one by one, a middle-aged businessman said in a moderate voice. Serves her right, just waiting for that girl who insisted on putting on makeup almost made it impossible for everyone to return home, someone echoed. I heard that girl ran away and sold the three of them to thugs. Pei Yuan's forehead veins bulged as he listened to these words, his eyes were bloodshot. Shut up, who dares to slander Yao Yao? His suit was tattered beyond recognition, yet he still managed to maintain an air of superiority. It must be Pei Yuan's scheme, she's always been jealous of Yao Yao. With that, he rushed towards me in 3 quick steps. He grabbed my collar with such force that he nearly lifted me out of my seat. Tell me, what exactly did you do to Yao Yao? Isn't this a trap from the moment you suddenly started supporting Yao Yao? The assistant immediately stepped forward and forcefully pried his hand. Are you crazy? If it weren't for the teacher contacting the military, how would you have been rescued? At those words, Pei Yuan let out a cold, mocking laugh. The grip of his hand tightened even more. Bullshit. She wished we had died that day. From the very first day she was brought back to the Pei family, she's been going against Yao Yao at every turn. I calmly met his gaze. Staring into those eyes brimming with madness, memories from my past life came flooding back. I still remember the year I turned 15, when the Pei family took me in from the orphanage. At our first meeting, Pei Yuan grabbed me by the throat and warned me, don't think being my biological sister means you can take Yao Yao's place. Let me make this clear, Yao Yao is the only sister I recognize. If I find out you've been bullying her, you can get out of the Pei family. My thoughts snapped back to the present. I narrowed my eyes and pressed my right thumb precisely into a point on his elbow joint. Pei Yuan cried out in pain and involuntarily released his grip. He rubbed his sore spot, a flicker of suspicion flashing in his eyes. When did you learn all this? I didn't speak, just straightened the wrinkled collar of my shirt. Mother suddenly burst into tears from behind. Enough, we're all family. Her meticulously applied makeup had long since smeared, revealing the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Yao Yao's life is hanging in the balance, and you're still blaming each other here. Her father rubbed his temples wearily, his voice hoarse. Enough said. Contact a lawyer as soon as you return to the country. His gaze at me was ice cold. Wanyue, you must take responsibility for this. If anything happens to Yao Yao, you know the consequences. I almost laughed out loud. Pei Yao abandoned them and ran towards the plane, only to vanish without a trace. How ironic, to think that in my past life, I craved their approval right up until my death. What a fool I was. They will always see me as an outsider. 8. As the plane landed at the international airport, a squad of police had already been waiting for a long time. The delay in evacuating caused serious consequences. My parents and brother need to be investigated and bear the corresponding legal responsibilities. Why are we the only ones being arrested? Pei Yuan struggled fiercely, unwilling to let the police handcuff her. He was still accusing me, claiming I colluded with thugs and urging the police to arrest me quickly. The police officer taking the statement couldn't take it anymore and slammed the folder shut. According to the unanimous testimony of the other overseas Chinese, the 3 of you threatened everyone with guns to stay, causing them to miss the best evacuation time, and that gun was being carried illegally. Pei Yuan opened his mouth, wanting to say something in his defense. At that moment, a familiar figure suddenly pushed through the crowd, sobbing. They rushed over. Daddy. Mommy, you're okay. Sobs. It was Pei Yao. She was wearing the latest Chanel dress, her makeup was flawless, and even her hair looked freshly styled. You'd never guess what she'd been through. None of us expected her to come back alive, but what surprised us even more was that she didn't seem to hold a grudge against her parents and brother for abandoning her at the airport, leaving her to the mob. The family immediately gathered around her, offering hugs and words of comfort. It was as if she had already forgotten who nearly cost her her life. Her mother stroked her face with aching tenderness. Yao Yao, I was so worried about you. Are you all right? As she spoke, she cast a meaningful glance in my direction. Pei Yao's face flashed with guilt, and then she pointed at me and screamed, "It's my sister. She's colluding with the thugs, and she threatened me not to tell anyone." Tears streamed down her face without end. As she sobbed uncontrollably in her mother's arms, her shoulders trembled just the right amount. Wah! I barely managed to escape. The deputy was shaking with rage. That's a filthy lie. You're the one who sold them out to save your own skin. Enough. father cut in sharply. He gently patted Pei Yao's back with a heartache. Yao Yao has been through so much shock, and you still want to push her. He looked at me, his eyes full of disgust. Pei Wanyue, I truly regret bringing you back. You are not worthy to be our daughter. Pei Yuan glared at me as if I were his enemy. You vicious woman, you don't deserve to be a family member. I calmly watched this farce. Taking out my phone from my pocket, I signaled Colonel Zhang to send me the surveillance footage. Pei Yuan stopped crying at the sight. A flicker of panic crossed her face. What surveillance? I couldn't help but smile at the unease in her eyes. There are hidden cameras in the airport lounge. They must have captured your transaction with the gang leader. I imagine the footage also includes you transferring the $500,000. As soon as the words were spoken, Pei Yao's face turned as white as a sheet. 3 days later, my parents and brother were formally charged with endangering public safety. In court, their high-paid top lawyer tried to play the family card. Your Honor, my client simply cares too much about their family, the judge said coldly. Is this the level of importance that justifies sacrificing the lives of over 100 of our compatriots? 15 people's injuries worsened due to delayed treatment, and 2 of them are still in critical condition. The overseas compatriots in the public gallery all wore identical expressions of indignation. Someone held up a phone, a video playing on its screen. That was the surveillance footage from the airport terminal. It clearly captured Pei Yuan threatening the crowd with a gun. The entire scene where my parents stood by, watching coldly from the sidelines. My assistant, standing beside me, whispered in my ear, the video has shot to the top of the trending charts, and netizens are absolutely furious. Public outrage escalated rapidly. The son of the Pei group threatened overseas Chinese nationals with a gun. He delayed the evacuation to wait for his daughter. Topics quickly garnered over 100 million views. Netizens are even more outraged. Rich people can do whatever they want. Their lives matter. But others' lives don't. They must be sent to prison and made bankrupt. Afterward, I faced my father in the visitation room of the detention center. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot. It's all your fault. If you hadn't stood by and watched, how could we have ended up like this? I calmly looked at him. I am merely testifying truthfully. I took out a document from my briefcase and said, the board has temporarily suspended your management rights, and I have been appointed as the interim CEO. My father's face changed abruptly. How could you? Those old foxes on the board would never agree. Because I can save the Pei family, I smiled faintly. Just this morning, I secured a deal with the National Military Industrial Group. The stock price has already begun to recover. In my past life, I quietly resolved countless crises for the Pei family, yet never received a single word of acknowledgement. In this life, I will make them understand that without me, the Pei family is nothing. Mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. Wanyue, Mom knows she was wrong. Can you please talk to the judge for us? We're a family after all. As long as you help us this time, Mom promises to treat you well from now on. Looking at my biological parents in front of me, I gently shook my head. The moment you chose to sacrifice me to save Pei Yao, that bond was already broken. 10. This was only because the circumstances were deemed minor, and also in consideration of the fact that the overseas compatriot ultimately returned home safely. Mom, Dad, and my brother were all released on bail very quickly in the end. However, the first thing Pei Yuan did when he got home was to threaten to administer family discipline to me. He held a specially made cowhide whip, his face contorted with anger as he glared at me. Kneel down. Today, I will cleanse the Pei family of your presence. My gaze fell on the whip. I felt a chill run through my body. I am very familiar with it. It was because when I was 16, I accidentally knocked over Pei Yao's jewelry. That whip left me bedridden for 3 days. My parents just sat there on the sofa, completely unmoved by my desperate screams and pleas. They remained indifferent, offering nothing but a cold, detached stare. Pei Yao, nestled in their arms, snickered before offering a fake, saccharine plea. Brother, please don't be like this. I'm sure she didn't mean it. She's probably just jealous of me. A triumphant smile played on her lips, clearly proud of her irreplaceable status in the Pei family's eyes. My thoughts snapped back to the present as I regarded them coldly. I glanced down at my wristwatch. You have 3 minutes left. What? Father frowned, the lines on his face deepening. What trick are you trying to pull now? Just then, the doorbell rang abruptly. A squad of officers in crisp uniforms stood outside the door. The leading officer holds the rank of Major General, Professor Pei. He saluted me with a standard military salute. The commander sent us to pick you up. The project team has been waiting for you for 3 days. The whole family froze in place. Pei Yao was the first to snap out of it. What, professor? Isn't she just a regular researcher? I shot a glance at her, taken aback. Who knows what sweet talk she used this time to win them back over, but that's none of my business anymore. Upon hearing this, the Major General shot her a cold glance. Professor Pei is the chief scientist of our nation's XX project, a top-tier expert who receives a special state stipend. As he spoke, he turned to me, his tone shifting to one of respect. Professor, the special plane is ready. The leader hopes you can head to the Northwest base as soon as possible. Mother's legs gave way, and she slumped into the leather sofa. This can't be. She didn't even finish college. Madam Pei, the Major General said coldly, your daughter earned her Ph.D. from XX at just 20 years old. After returning to the country, she led 3 national-level research projects. If it weren't for confidentiality requirements, she would have already received the National Top Science and Technology Award. My father whirled around to face me, a complex mix of emotions flashing in his eyes. Why didn't you tell us? I let out a soft chuckle. Did you ever give me a chance to speak? Every time the family sat together, the conversation always revolved around Pei Yao's piano exams, ballet competitions, new dresses. Pei Yuan's expression shifted unpredictably, the whip in his hand dropping limply. In that moment, I finally saw regret in their eyes. However, I understand that their regret is not because they didn't treat me well, but rather, they realized that their actions would prevent them from benefiting from my identity. At this point, the Major General proceeded to take out a document labeled Top Secret from his briefcase. According to the investigation by the National Security Department, MS, Pei Yao had multiple contacts with intelligence personnel from country X during the war, suspected of leaking state secrets. What? The father suddenly stood up, knocking over the tea table. How could Yao? The file contains encrypted communication records between Pei Yao and foreign spies. There are also screenshots of her secretly copying confidential business information from her father's computer. Most damning of all, she deliberately delayed at the airport. It was all a ploy to collaborate with foreign elements and sabotage the evacuation operation. This is a frame-up. Pei Yao shrieked. They fabricated it. Just because I'm adopted, you all want to destroy me. Expressionless, the Major General produced another document. Furthermore, MS, Pei Yao is suspected of transferring Pei family assets to offshore accounts. Over the past 6 months, she exploited Mrs. Pei's trust to gradually siphon off nearly half of the family's liquid assets. As soon as the words were spoken, father snatched the documents. His hands trembled violently. The records clearly show that every single transfer was authorized by Pei Yao's digital signature and biometric verification. Why? Her mother asked, looking in disbelief at the imposter daughter she had raised from childhood. We treated you better than our own flesh and blood. Seeing her scheme exposed, Pei Yao dropped the act completely. She tore off her sweet facade and laughed hysterically. Good, you've only ever treated me as a trophy to show off. Every single banquet I had to perform, you'd always compare me to the other young ladies. I had to be the best, or else I'd see the disappointment in your eyes. She pointed at me, her eyes full of malice. Later, when the real heiress returned, you pampered me even more to avoid gossip. Deep down, you've been comparing who's more useful, haven't you? At this moment, the living room fell into a deathly silence. Pei Yuan suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Pei Yao by the throat. Bitch, we raised you like a princess for 20 years, and this is how you repay us. The officers quickly pulled him away. Pei Yao clutched her throat, collapsing weakly to the ground. My parents seemed to think of something at that moment, and they suddenly turned their gaze to me. Their eyes glistened with tears. Wanyue, your father knows he was wrong. The Pei family cannot do without you. Your mother will make it up to you. I promise. We are family. I watched their pleading expressions, my heart unmoved. I turned and walked away, ignoring their calls. This time, I live for myself. Story 2. Women of our clan are born frail, requiring the essence of beast men to prolong their lives. My elder sister claimed the robust Wolf, leaving me with the feeble fox, yet the werewolf proved all bark and no bite. I raised the fox and nursed him back to health. He killed me with his bite, then crawled into my sister's chamber. Only then did I realize how deeply he loathed me. He'd always loved my sister, believing I stood in his way. When I opened my eyes again, my sister demanded we swap beast men. I consented, but later, the dying fox dragged itself to me, begging to trade back, stroking the wolf tail wrapped around my waist. I chuckled. No deal. I raised Gideon for 3 years. He hated me, every single one of them. He believes I'm the one standing between him and the firstborn sister. Little does he know, I've no say when facing the eldest daughter of the main house. Women of our bloodline are born frail, requiring the life essence of beast folk to prolong our existence. As a concubine-born daughter, I wasn't given a choice. The frail Gideon was thrust upon me by the heiress. Werewolf bloodlines are noble. How dare a mere bastard like you presume to be sustained by our kind? This fox suits you perfectly, both wretched creatures. And so, I formed a pact with Gideon, but his body was pathetically weak. He couldn't even muster the strength to take human form. When I first drained his life essence, the little fox curled into a ball, begging me not to kill him. Such a frail beast folk would likely perish from a single feeding. All lives are equal. How cruel it is to prolong human life by sacrificing beasts. Our family's affliction is an ancestral curse. Unrelated to him, I never relied on Gideon to support me, and even gave him my tonic. It would have been wasted on me anyway. Gradually, Gideon grew as strong as my sister's werewolf kin. I'd planned to find Gideon a good home after my passing. Never did I imagine he'd come to despise me so. I thought even if he didn't love me, he'd at least feel grateful. Yet, I never asked you to save me. You did it willingly. Why should I be grateful? A mere commoner dares to claim lordship over my fox clan. Know your place. Without you, I could serve her alongside the werewolves. This is what you get for crossing me. Rhea, an orc can only form a life bond with one mate, or their lifeblood will turn against them. Not unless I die, to be with our eldest sister. He heartlessly mauled me to death and climbed into her bed. The werewolf our sister chose was all bark and no bite. She and Gideon hit it off immediately. That beast man who killed his master should have been executed, but when our sister took a fancy to him, she lied that I'd been bitten during my promiscuous affairs with wild beast men. When I opened my eyes again, there stood my sister holding a werewolf's leash, questioning me. Shall we trade? I sighed, watching Gideon, whose eyes were only for my elder sister. Deal. My elder sister smiled sweetly. No takebacks now, little sister. Forgot to mention, this werewolf may look strong, but he's all bark and no bite, if you know what I mean. With that, she left, cradling the white fox. The werewolf beside me said coldly, Master, don't trust her. Too, Master. Gideon never called me that before. He barely spoke to me, let alone allowed my touch. Now, having gotten his way, he nestled demurely in my sister's arms with fox-like allure in his eyes. Yet I'll never forget the savage look on his face when he tore me apart. Master, it's time for the covenant. Yora nudged his shoulder against me, bringing me back to awareness. Different beast folk have distinct bonding rituals. Gideon chose to carve the words into his arm. Back then, I only made a shallow cut, afraid it might hurt him. Yora's bonding ritual involved leaving bite marks on his shoulder, typical werewolf brutality. Even in mating rituals, I gave him a gentle nip, but his expression turned icy. Does my lord refuse to bond with Yora? I frowned in confusion. What? He said coldly. A shallow bite makes a weak bond. Could it be that my lord still pines for that vixen? A guilty flush crept up my neck as I averted my eyes, my secret laid bare. He suddenly rose to his full imposing height, his towering frame radiating dominance. Does even my master think I'm incompetent? My gaze instinctively fell upon him, revealing abdominal muscles like terraced fields. No wonder my elder sister praised his robust physique. What a pity, with such impressive looks, who'd have thought he'd be all brawn and no substance? Truth be told, as the orc providing for the family, Yora is far more dutiful than Gideon. Right after the bonding ritual, he ignored the bloody gashes on his shoulder and immediately offered me his life essence. Having no prior experience, I flushed crimson with embarrassment. In my past life, my elder sister never stopped complaining about choosing the wrong orc mate. The werewolf looks intimidating, but all that sucking didn't do a damn thing. But personally, I find this life-draining immortality method repulsive. I turned Yora down and changed the subject. I'm Skilled in medicine, perhaps I can cure your condition. Yora said nonchalantly, "What illness are you treating me for?" Remembering my elder sister's words, I hesitated to speak and could only look at him. Yora seemed to understand, his stern face growing colder as he wrapped himself in the blanket and retreated to a corner, saying angrily, "I'm not sick, no treatment needed." I frowned, after going out of my way to restore his werewolf vigor. How dare he get angry? 3. From that day on, Yora gave me the cold shoulder for 10 full days. He refused my tonic, and I wouldn't accept his offerings either. Strangely enough, my health gradually improved without any tonics or Orsish vitality supplements, but from what I heard, Gideon wasn't faring so well. I saw Gideon again at a family banquet a month later. The firstborn sister sat beside the matriarch, radiating confidence. He stood there in human form, his face deathly pale, though white foxes are naturally pale. Gideon's pallor was unnatural. It was the ashen white of the dead, given my elder sisters. Insatiable appetite for longevity, his frail body surely couldn't endure. In our past life, I was the one nursing him back to health. This time, no one will show him mercy. The matriarch asked her eldest daughter, "Indra, how fares the beast man in your service? Your complexion has improved remarkably, child." Indra blushed demurely. Mother's technique of channeling his inner energy worked wonders. I'd never have regained such vigor otherwise. Gideon's shoulders jerked violently, his entire body tensing like a startled bird. I immediately recognized that Indra was employing the ancient beast taming method. The archaic technique could stimulate the latent vital energy within beast men, gradually draining them dry, with foxes being the most susceptible. Then they'd use drugs to prolong the victim's agony, preventing a quick death, but this method was tantamount to murder, only hastening the beastman's demise in excruciating torment. But Gideon loved his sister so dearly, he must have willingly given his life for her. I looked up and met a pair of crimson eyes. It was Gideon. He stood right before me, tears welling in his eyes as he gazed at me pleadingly, mouthing 3 words, "Help me, help, I've saved you once. There won't be a second time. What are you looking at?" A sudden chill ran down my spine, piercing to the marrow. I turned to see Yora glaring at Gideon with venom in his eyes. In a voice only orcs and handlers could hear, he growled, "Look at her again and I'll end you." For after the family feast, the women of the household gathered around Indra, seeking her wisdom on beast taming. With a bewitching smile, Indra pushed aside Gideon's arm. Upon his pale, slender forearm was carved the name, Indra, in deep, bone-revealing gashes. To bind an orc's loyalty, the blood pact must be carved deep. The deeper the mark, the more life essence you drain, and the longer your own years extend. Choosing the right orc matters too. Take this fox of mine, sickly as he looks, his life force runs deep. A little persuasion goes a long way. The ladies couldn't hide their envy, praising Indra's mastery over beasts. Gideon stood at the center like a courtesan, devoured by their brazen gazes. Someone ventured to ask, "Indra, since the fox's effects are so remarkable, why not let Auntie have a try?" The mistress chose a dog back then, and now it's old and half dead, utterly useless. If we don't replace it soon, the mistress might not even survive. Gideon turned pale with horror, his already pallid face growing even more ghastly. "Miss, please don't, I'll die," he pleaded in a whisper. Indra shot him a glance and nodded at Auntie. "Fine, just some reverse chi flow, won't kill him in a day." Panicked, Gideon shoved through the crowd, sprinted toward me, and dropped to his knees with a thud. "Rhea, I was wrong, please, take me with you." "So, he's a reincarnator too, then he should know I won't save him again." Before I could speak, Yora kicked Gideon square in the chest, sending him flying. How dare this filth lay hands on my master? With contempt for the bloodied Gideon writhing on the ground, he grabbed me by the collar. "My lord, you must drain Yora's essence now, or your body won't withstand the strain." Under Gideon's hungry gaze, Yora dragged me forcibly into the bedchamber. That night shattered all my expectations. Now I understand why Indra claimed werewolf sustenance was the most potent. Now I understand why Yora insisted he wasn't ill and needed no treatment. I've come to realize there's truth to the rumors about prolonging life by draining orc essence. A single session left me feeling remarkably restored, but after a sleepless night, my complexion has taken on a sallow hue. The next day, Indra confronted me about Gideon's request for my help. Noticing my haggard appearance and Yora draping a cloak over me, she sneered, "Little sister looks so pale. Is the werewolf not performing well? I glanced at Yora's stormy expression, recalling Indra's words, and chuckled. Elder sister, he's deceived you. 5. Indra shot Yora a disdainful glance before turning her accusatory gaze toward me. The real deceiver here is you. Don't you know fraternizing with orcs from other clans warrants clan punishment? The moment fraternizing was uttered, every eye in the manor turned toward me. Last time, Indra used this very excuse to protect Gideon. Never thought it'd be about Gideon again this time. If you hadn't seduced him, why would Gideon beg you for help? Can't handle your own beast men, so you set your sights on mine. Quite the scheme you've got there, sister. With that, Indra pressed his palms together. The servants carried in a bloodied figure. It was Gideon, loaned to the concubine by Indra last night. He now lay barely breathing. Reverse-flowing vital essence kept spilling from the covenant mark, staining the pristine fox fur crimson. Gideon collapsed on the ground, his eyes brimming with indistinguishable blood or tears. Indra planted a foot on his skull, taunting me with the gesture. Rhea, how does it feel watching your beloved being twisted beyond recognition by my hand? I glanced down at Gideon. Blood trickled from his lips as he silently mouthed my name, pathetic and broken. He looked even frilier than when we first met, having been fooled once before. I knew foxes excel at playing the helpless victim. Gideon's rapid recovery in our past life wasn't just due to my meticulous care. That bastard had been deceiving me from the very beginning. Just one blood reversal won't kill him. Thinking I was reluctant, Indra laughed even more shamelessly. If you truly fancy Gideon, you're welcome to beg on your knees. I might just return him to you. Before I could speak, hands suddenly seized my waist. Yora strode to my side, his piercing cold gaze locking onto Indra. Your concern is unnecessary. My master is quite content with Yora. We've no need for other beasts. With that, he casually pinched me. The sharp pain from his pinch left me frozen. Yora's deep warning voice whispered in my ear. If once isn't enough, we'll repeat until our master is satisfied. Ha, you, nothing but a pretty face. After Indra's taunt, I clearly saw Yora's eyes turn sharp, his fingers morphing into lethal claws in an instant, murder flashing through him. Fearing he might actually strike, I quickly stepped between them. Gideon belongs to my elder sister. Whether he lives or dies means nothing to me. Dear sister, do keep your beastkin in check. Don't come begging for my help at every turn. My own beastkin might get jealous. The hand at my waist shifted from pinching to caressing. Seems I've finally managed to placate this werewolf. I sighed in relief, oblivious to the resentful glare Gideon shot my way. Realizing Gideon couldn't be used to manipulate me under Yora's menacing glare, Indra slunk away in humiliation. After Indra left, Yora retracted his claws and dragged me back inside. Master looks sallow. Clearly not feeding enough. Yora won't tolerate being called a useless pretty face. With that, he shifted into wolf form and advanced toward me step by step. A sudden thought struck me, and I pressed down the eager wolf's head to ask, why would Indra call you useless? What did you do to her? 6. The silver-gray wolf nuzzled against my palm, docile as if forgetting it was the alpha among beast men. He lifted his gaze with puppy-dog eyes. Yora has served no master but you. Please believe in Yora. Of course I trust him. Indra never succeeded even once. After all, ancient texts say the bond between humans and beast folk is a two-way choice, but after generations of domestication, many beast folk have forgotten they can choose. Yora didn't choose Indra, so why did he pick me? Because you're the only one who'd heal an orc. Yora led me to a cave beneath the cliffs. In that abyss-like darkness, I saw hundreds upon hundreds of orc skeletons. Yora said these were all his kin. Every orc has such a cave, where the bones of their fallen ancestors rest. For centuries, the family has drained the life from tens of thousands of orcs to prolong their own. Though mighty, orcs are no match for human cunning. The clan ancestors set traps to capture weaker orcs as hostages, forcing them into submission. Since orcs were rare, the ancestors caged them and compelled them to breed. Fearing the orcs' resentment, they raised newborn orc pups collectively to erase their hatred. Yet blood-deep feuds are never truly forgotten. With each generation's passing, some orcs awaken while others yield to fate. Yora refused to yield, yet a lone man stood no chance against spears and arrows. He kept searching for someone who could help him turn the tide. Yora took wolf form, licking the bones of his fallen kin. Some had long turned to dust, while others had just drawn their first breath. I never approved of this life-prolonging method to begin with, but witnessing it firsthand was utterly horrifying. This was my brother. He could have grown as strong as me, but Indra dropped him to his death right. After birth, Indra mocked, I thought werewolves were legendary warriors, turns out they're pathetically fragile. How could I possibly serve someone so cruel? In that moment, I understood Yora. I've only witnessed 3 generations of my family, yet 6 batches of orcs have come and gone. Humans naturally outlive beasts. It takes 3 or 4 orcs' lifespans to match a single human century. We survived. But they remain trapped in these bottomless caverns. Yora knelt before me, his tears staining my silk skirts. My lady may not recall, but you were the one who gathered my brother's remains and buried him beneath the tree. Without your mercy, I couldn't even have retrieved his bones. Now only you and Indra remain of our house. Should she take the reins, I fear our Orcish kin would face certain doom. He looked up with desperate eyes, clinging to me like a drowning man to driftwood. My lord, would you fight for the position of family patriarch, for my sake? Yora's words ignited my ambition. Stroking his wolf-like tail, I murmured, even without you, I'd still want that title. That night, we achieved perfect harmony before Yora's kin, unlike ever before. 7. Before dawn, rustling sounds echoed from the cave. I rose from Yora's side and turned to see a row of small figures. Their eyes glowed green, fixed on me with feral growls that belied their size. She killed grandfather. Tear her apart. The lead wolf pup lunged at me, only to be flicked away by Yora's single finger. Take a good look. This is your great-grandma. The pup froze in shock, its narrow eyes widening as it pointed at Yora. Great-grandpa, you're alive. I frowned. No output as the provided text is empty or contains only a non-printing character. How come the seniority is so high? Yora said it's normal for their wolf clan. They have kids young, so the generations stack up fast. Alright, but still, great-grandma. The wolf pup glanced between Yora and me, bearing 8 tiny fangs in a toothy grin. Caden of the 666th generation of the wolf clan pays respects to our revered matriarch. Caden gave me a deep ceremonial bow. As he bent forward, I noticed a bleeding gash on his back. It's an old wound that reopened when I ran too fast just now. Nothing serious. I gathered some herbs to stop his bleeding, never expecting he'd burst into tears. Granny, you're so kind. Caden, pledge my lifelong loyalty to you. His dramatics made me chuckle. Just a small favor, no need for such vows. This is no trivial matter. Yora moved around behind me, explaining the origins of the wolf pups. These pups were all rescued from his family and secretly hidden in a mountain cave. They'd been caged since birth, left untreated when ill, and remained deeply distrustful of humans. The little kindness I showed was enough to make them risk their lives in gratitude. I watched the wolf cubs' tears fall with a silent sigh. How pitiful that those filled with bitterness can be satisfied with just a drop of sweetness. Ever since then, Yora would often bring me to the cave. They were curious about the outside world, asking when they could finally leave. Yora and I exchanged glances, giving them a glimmer of hope. One day, I'll have our family come to take you out of here. Seeing their joyful faces, I envisioned a future where humans and orcs could coexist in harmony, but my voice carries little weight. There's still a long road ahead to achieve our goal. Just then, something unexpected happened. 8. Caden went missing. Yora searched for several nights but found nothing. Meanwhile, Indra's beauty grew ever more radiant, her skin as flawless as a newborn's, causing a sensation throughout the capital. When the ladies of the household inquired about her secret, fearing rivals might surpass her beauty, she credited Gideon alone. Overnight, Gideon became Indra's favored confidant, and the entire household's rising star. Yora sensed something amiss. He caught the scent of multiple orcs on Gideon. Later, Yora witnessed Gideon dumping orc cub corpses in the back mountains. His gut twisted with dread. Rushing to the cave, he found the floor slick with blood and wolf fur. Yora snapped, his eyes burning crimson. He seized Gideon by the throat. Why did you kill my people? Why? Gideon still wanted to challenge him, but the size difference was too great. Yora smashed him into the ground with a single punch. Gideon spotted me and crawled to my feet, begging. Indra forced me. I had no choice. Gideon revealed a horrifying truth to me. Since the last blood reflux incident, his body has become too weak to sustain the offerings. To avoid being abandoned, he resorted to capturing weak beastfolk from the wild for Indra's rituals. Those beastfolk were mere cubs, defenseless creatures that would perish after a single sacrificial ritual. But the younglings possess a unique property adult orcs lack: the power to reverse aging. Thankfully, the clan still believes in sustainable practices and hasn't descended into madness by slaughtering the young. Indra has no heart. I was forced into this. I admit my mistake. Send me back, and I won't have to do such things anymore. I can still help you take down Indra. Just give me one chance. Gideon lay sprawled on the ground, his bloodied hand clutching at my foot as he begged for mercy. I kicked his hand away and sent him sprawling with a sharp shove. Indra isn't the only heartless one here. What did those cubs ever do to you? Just as they began trusting humans, their own kind captured them for sacrifice. Gideon, you bastard. Gideon froze. He dropped the axe and bared his fangs at me. Rhea, don't act so high and mighty. After all you've done for the orcs, what have you gained for yourself? Everyone's selfish. If you don't fight for your own interests, you deserve to die. That alone means you'll never be a match for Indra. I sneered. And what have you gained from slaughtering all those orcs for your own sake? Those who taint others' kindness in the name of selfishness will ultimately reap what they sow. Gideon's smile faded, alternating between desperate pleas and vicious curses directed at me. His madness finally condensed into a single sentence: don't kill me, or you'll live to regret it. I shot Yora a glance. In an instant, Yora tore out his throat. Just then, Indra arrived with the entire orc garrison. 9. Cradling Gideon's corpse, Indra accused me of slaughtering scores of orcs. Rhea secretly incited orcs to slaughter each other. Avenge your kin now. Yora transformed into a wolf, shielding me with the ferocity of one facing 10. Indra raised her hand, commanding every orc in the manor to seize me. Yet strangely, though she stood waiting, not a single orc made a move. Indra snapped, turning to berate the orcs. What's the matter? A dozen orcs scared of one werewolf. Attack. Indra was wrong. They weren't afraid of Yora. Those orcs were all patients I'd treated before. Take Auntie's old hound for example. The longest-lived orc in the manor. I saved him last winter when he was at death's door. Though Auntie grumbles about him, after decades together they've become like an old married couple, leaning on each other for comfort. Hearts aren't made of stone. Not everyone sees orcs as mere tools. Indra kept provoking, but no one responded, making her increasingly irritable. A beast man stepped forward to enlighten her. The second young lady isn't that kind of person. We've all received her kindness. There must be some misunderstanding. The beast folk murmured in agreement. Indra froze. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined her carefully laid plans would lead to this. Before his death, Gideon once asked me, after all you've done for the orcs, what have you gained? This is what I've gained. Indra was caught in a dilemma, utterly mortified. Suddenly, Caden lunged from the cliff's edge, aiming straight for Indra's throat, but his injuries were too severe. With his last ounce of strength, he only managed to leap onto her leg before being instantly kicked away. Caden crashed to the ground, lifeless, his dead eyes still fixed unblinkingly on Indra. Anyone could tell who was slaughtering the orcs in this scene. The orcs who had been standing behind Indra now turned to me, demanding justice. Panicked, Indra abandoned Gideon's corpse and fled back to the manor. 10. Mother, she's the one who framed me for orc slaughter and incited the manor's orcs to kill me. The moment I returned to the manor, I overheard Indra tattling malicious lies about me to the matriarch. Upon seeing me, the matriarch immediately demanded I be punished according to family discipline. Rhea, how dare you slander your elder sister and defy the natural order with such audacity? The matriarch had been setting traps for me for years. Countless times I'd endured it helplessly when powerless. I won't hold back anymore. I stared straight at them without a trace of fear. Whether this is slander, my elder sister knows best. Still lying, beat her, who dares try me, with a wolf's howl. From Yora, a dozen orcs shape-shifted simultaneously, flooding the manor hall with their hulking forms. The overwhelming display forced even the matriarch to retreat several paces, but swiftly, she summoned archers to execute the rebels. Not a single orc flinched before the wall of arrows, sworn to avenge their fallen kin. I stepped forward and held Yora back. Yora refused to retreat, fearing for my safety. Turning back with a faint smile, I whispered, "Trust me." As I approached, Indra cowered fearfully behind the matriarch. I walked past her and bowed respectfully before the matriarch. "Please reconsider, matriarch, these are savage beasts. When enraged, they could still maul people even through arrow volleys. Moreover, with beast folk so scarce these days, How could we replace so many losses? Without them, the women of this household wouldn't last long either. The matriarch squinted at me, trying to decipher my intentions but failing to grasp them. I shot Indra a sidelong glance. The orcs merely want an explanation, just give them one. No need for such drastic measures. With my sister's marriage prospects at stake, any scandal could ruin her reputation. After a long deliberation, the matriarch relented. Self-preservation wins out in the end. Mutual destruction sounds bold in theory, but few have the nerve to follow through. The matriarch spared Indra. Citing the deceased witness made the case unverifiable. She merely made her kneel in prayer for the fallen orcs. Considering the matter settled, Indra knelt all night, cursing my name through clenched teeth. When she saw me, she hissed, "Mark my words. This isn't over." I chuckled, "Oh, this isn't over by a long shot. For the deaths of my wolf kin, neither you nor your mother shall be spared." But karma works in mysterious ways. Before I could lift a finger, Indra met with misfortune. 11 After Gideon's death, the matriarch selected new beast men for Indra, yet to her dismay, every one of them proved as unwilling as Yora to sustain Indra, deprived of the beastman's vital essence. Indra's body grew weaker by the day. Worse still, the younglings she'd previously preyed upon now corroded her flesh like opium, their withheld sustenance triggering violent withdrawal. The suitors fled in terror at the sight of her disfigured face. Within days, Indra went from being the capital's greatest beauty to its most hideous woman, hiding in her chambers in shame. Her stepmother fared no better. Ever since she indulged Indra, she'd been plagued by nightly nightmares. She kept dreaming of orcs shape-shifting to tear her apart alive, and visions of dead orcs demanding her life in vengeance. Consulted multiple physicians to no avail. Her condition only worsened. One dawn, the matriarch woke to find an orc skull by her pillow, shrieking in hysterical terror. After exhausting all medical options, the desperate matriarch turned to me, her illegitimate daughter. As a last resort, she said I'd cured so many orcs, and since her illness was caused by them, I must know the remedy. I did know the cure, because I was the one who did it. The matriarch was stunned. She never expected me to voice it aloud. "Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" I lifted her weakened form from the nightmare's grip and asked, "Would you dare gamble, mother?" Her shoulders trembled in my hands as she whispered, "Gamble on what? I wager you won't kill me. In fact, you'll make me the next matriarch. How dare you?" The first wife slammed the bed and rose, glaring at me with fury, but she was too frail. Her rage lasted but a moment before she collapsed back onto the bed. I took out a vial of medicine and placed 2 pills by her lips. "This is life-extending medicine for the women of our household. It works just like consuming an orc's vital essence." The matriarch eyed me with suspicion, unwilling to trust so easily. I swallowed 2 pills myself, held my breath briefly, then exhaled a wisp of white mist. In my past life, I spent years searching for an alternative to Orcish remedies. Tragically, Gideon mauled me to death just as my breakthrough was within reach. Now the life-extending elixir is perfected, enough to sustain every woman in the manor. Both human and beast hearts bend to my will. Even the matriarch's life hangs by my thread. Victory was never hers to claim. The matriarch knew her reign was over, gazing skyward in despair. "My household brims with talent, yet none could develop the cure. Only you succeeded." They weren't incapable, they simply wouldn't. With beast men as convenient tools, who'd bother with medicine? After leaving the matriarch's chambers, I became the undisputed lady of the house. Yora was waiting for me at home. He said the medicine was good, but nothing compared to his vitality. Stroking the wolf tail wrapped around my waist, I chuckled, "You've worked hard. No more leaving bones in the first wife's chamber." 12 Indra lost her mind when she learned I'd become the matriarch. After disfiguring herself, she made her first public appearance by storming into my room and screaming insults at me. I was chatting with several aunts at the time, and her ghastly appearance sent them covering their eyes in horror. Indra pointed at my face and launched into a tirade, completely disregarding the presence of others. "You scheming usurper, using underhanded tricks to force my mother into submission. You're utterly unfit to be the matriarch." I simply smiled faintly at her insults, paying them no mind. Surprisingly, it was my stepmother who spoke up for me. "Indra, instead of opposing the mistress, why not beg her to heal your face?" Indra acted as if gravely insulted. "Me, a legitimate daughter, beg some low-born concubine's child? Never." I set down the teacup and said coolly, "Don't beg me, your face is your own doing, beyond any cure, you'll likely wear this face for the rest of your life, till the day you die." Indra froze, she staggered toward me, and upon seeing her reflection in my eyes, completely lost her mind, flailing wildly and babbling nonsense. I sidestepped her attack and summoned the house servants. "The young mistress has gone mad, take her back to her quarters, she's not to leave without my orders." Indra was carried away by force, her maniacal laughter echoing through the entire estate. Later, I freed all the beast folk in the household, placing no restrictions on their comings and goings. Most beast folk have returned to the wilderness, while a small number with existing owners chose to remain. Take Yora for instance. Lately he's been unusually protective, shadowing my every move without fail. When asked why, he claimed not to know, only that I carried some peculiar scent. I laughed at him for making a mountain out of a molehill, until the day dizziness and nausea hit me. Then I realized a wolf's nose never lies. "I'm pregnant." Yora froze in shock. When he finally snapped out of it, his first question was, "Will my lady bear a human child, or a wolf cub?" I teased him, still calling me my lady. "Are we?" Yora froze suddenly, a faint blush coloring his stern features. "Am my lady." I planted a big smooch right on the wolf's snout. "Ha, who knew werewolves could be this adorable when flustered?" 10 months later, I gave birth to a human baby, a little girl. She looks just like any normal child. A beautiful little girl, but her cries were something else, howling like a wolf, loud enough to summon every dog within 100 miles. Yora named her Syra. May she grow broad-minded and upright, with soaring ambitions, to one day become the matriarch of our family. Just like me, all I wish is for her to grow up safe and sound in good health. The heavens seemed to hear my plea and gave me a wonderful surprise. Syra's constitution is far stronger than mine was as a child. She started crawling at just 3 months old, moving with wolf-like agility. At just 6 months old, she could topple heavy objects, inheriting her father's Herculean strength. Yet Syra possessed remarkable human intelligence as well. She called Mama at 9 months, recited poems by age 1, and carried herself like a little adult by 2. Syra became the only woman in the household who didn't need medication to sustain her life. A bold idea suddenly struck me. Perhaps a child born from the union of human and orc could break our clan's ancient curse. This theory found proof in my aunt's own experience. She confessed that she once bore a child with her family's old hound, but with strict family rules at the time and her being unmarried, she hid the child. To protect her reputation, the child is alive and well to this day. I found several other women with similar experiences, and discovered that human-orc offspring inherit the best traits of both, but bound by family traditions, none dared speak of it. Family traditions can be broken if it means freeing future generations from suffering. Perhaps this was nature's gift all along. The cure was right before us. Yet we chose destruction. I rewrote our family laws, transforming beastfolk human pacts into marriages, and our lineage's weakness vanished. 14. The year Syra turned 3, I took her to the mountain cave. The cave has now become the ancestral home of the wolf clan, with Yora's lineage stretching back 3 more generations. Syra became the alpha of the pack's pups, often leading the cubs on wild runs across the mountains. Behind the cave lies the burial ground we've built for our fallen kin. The smallest one belongs to Caden. I held Syra close and said, "This is your grandnephew. When you grow up, you must protect him and never let anyone bully him." Syra stared at the gravestone for a long time before turning to me with a solemn promise. "Don't worry, mother, Syra will never let anyone harm my wolf cubs and their descendants." Gazing at the mountainside dotted with tombstones, I smiled with quiet contentment. "I promised my family would get you out, and I never go back on my word." Side story. Yora's perspective. I am an orc from birth. I was destined to be sacrificial fodder. Humans are selfish and cruel. They'd trade our lives for their own survival without hesitation. I'll never forget how Indra dashed my brother to his death, then kicked his body aside like worthless weeds. Yet I also remember that girl who buried my brother beneath a tree and prayed for him after the crowd dispersed. She was the family's illegitimate daughter, Rhea, the very patron we beast men are bound to serve. Had I stayed by her side, that cunning fox would never have killed her. With Rhea's death, all my hopes perished too. How vile. They even slandered her, claiming she died in disgrace with beast men, tarnishing her name with such cruelty. I carried Ria's body to the back mountains and laid her to rest with my kin. May she be reborn free from clan ties in her next life, blessed with peace and joy. And so, I formed a blood pact with Gideon. I turned and saw the beast folk of the manor standing there. They said the second young miss had saved their lives, so they came to see her off. See, Ria, even the orcs remember your kindness. We gathered around her under the bright moon, expressing our gratitude. Suddenly, the moonlight grew blinding, lulling us into drowsiness. When I opened my eyes again, I heard a voice. "Want a trade?" Ria stood right before me, so vividly alive, yet her gaze remained fixed on that damn fox, never sparing me a single glance. I felt inexplicably nervous, fearing she'd repeat past mistakes, until she said, "Switch." My anxious heart finally settled. No takebacks, little sister. Forgot to mention this. Werewolf looks strong, but he's all bark and no bite, utterly useless in bed. Ria finally glanced my way. Those were eyes brimming with kindness. One day, I'll make those eyes see only me. This orc, master, don't trust her. I'm terrifyingly strong. Story 2. In the apocalypse, the delicate and innocent girl showed great kindness and took in many people who were bitten by zombies, forcing me to treat them. However, when I saved her before, my supernatural power was almost exhausted. I reminded her. People's hearts are sinister, and you have to be on guard. But the delicate and innocent girl accused me with tears in her eyes and a loud voice. "Elise, you're so selfish. Not only do you refuse to treat them, but you also smear others." I was pushed out of the window by the enraged crowd and was torn apart and eaten by countless zombies. The delicate and innocent girl caught the eye of Carson, the future overlord of the base. With her kind persona. Later, I found out that Carson had always been among the group of people I treated. I was just a stepping stone for the delicate and innocent girl to show herself off and get close to Carson. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time when the delicate and innocent girl came to me. 1. Elise, many people outside have been bitten by zombies, and I want to save them. The soft and tender voice rang in my ears along with the roars of the zombies. The next second, I suddenly opened my eyes. Esther had snow-white skin. She raised her little tear-stained face, glanced at me, and prepared to open the door. The pain of being torn apart by the zombies seemed to still be there, but my skin and limbs were intact. I realized that I had been reborn. Esther and I were both postgraduate classmates and roommates. On the day the apocalypse arrived, I awakened my healing supernatural power after she was bitten by another roommate who had turned into a zombie. I used my supernatural power to save her. In the previous life, she went with me to look for food and happened to come across a group of people hiding from the zombies. I quickly pulled her and hid on the 3rd floor of the cafeteria. But Esther showed excessive kindness. She opened the door and let that group of people who were bitten by zombies in. She begged me to save them at all costs. In the apocalypse, the most unpredictable thing is people's hearts. Esther was so rash to let people in like this and ask me to treat them. I thought she was just too innocent and didn't understand how sinister people's hearts could be. Esther, my supernatural power is not inexhaustible. Unexpectedly, after Esther directly let the people in, she turned around and knelt on the ground to beg me. "Elise, please save them. I know you don't like to meddle in other people's business, but all you'll lose is your supernatural power, while they'll lose their lives." They all stared at me with red eyes, too angry to speak out. Although they were covered in blood, it seemed that if they were given a little more strength, they would rush forward and bite me to death. Before, I had told Elise that if my supernatural power was exhausted, I would explode and die, but Esther still pleaded with me in front of so many people. I frowned and told her to get up, but she remained kneeling on the ground. Even more, Esther started kowtowing to me. The thumping sound made the crowd even more indignant towards me. "Miss Esther, don't beg her." "Humph, what a selfish person." I forcefully pulled her up. Esther let out a cry and fell to the ground. Several of the injured young men rushed forward to help her up. With angry eyes, they said, "It's okay if you don't want to save them, but is it necessary to be so harsh?" I looked at Esther at a loss, but she turned her head away, wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and said softly, "Don't be like this. Elise didn't do it on purpose." I thought I had hurt Esther, and I felt even more guilty. In the end, I agreed to Esther's request and cured them all. However, each of them only thanked Esther for saving their lives. "Too, little benefactor, it's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, our family of 3 would have died long ago." "Thank you, Miss Esther, you're really a kind-hearted person." The sunlight shone on her quivering eyelashes, matching her delicate and innocent face. There was a kind of holy beauty. The crowd respected her greatly, but instead, they hated my indifference. I don't know who spread the word about my healing supernatural power, and more people came to me for treatment. Esther's reputation for kindness also grew, but I fainted several times due to overusing my supernatural power. Even so, those people who I had treated before gossiped behind my back. I think Elise just doesn't want to treat others on purpose, so she's pretending to faint. I've seen it a long time ago. This person is really bad and can't be compared with the little benefactor. These people never thought that Esther just talked the talk, and it was actually me who really saved them. I told Esther about my plan to take her and sneak away. She didn't refuse, however. That night, Esther directly grabbed my hand with tears in her eyes and said, "Elise, you're so selfish. Not only do you refuse to treat others, but you also smear them. I won't go with you." She accused me in a voice that everyone could hear. Her righteous appearance made the resentment the crowd had towards me over these days explode. I was pushed out of the window by the enraged crowd. Below were all zombies with rotting bodies, roaring continuously. The moment my body was torn apart, I saw Esther leaning out of the window and smiling at me. After I died, I became a wisp of a ghost and learned the truth. It turned out that Esther wanted to attract Carson, the big shot from the capital circle and the future overlord of the base, with her kind persona, just because my supernatural power was too dazzling. So she wanted to use me first and then get rid of me. I was completely unaware that Carson had always been among the group of people who were let in, and I was just a stepping stone for Esther to show herself off and get close to Carson. 3. Esther was getting closer to the doorknob while looking outside through the gaps between the stacked seats. I knew she was looking through the glass window to confirm Carson's position. My eyes narrowed slightly. I opened the door one step ahead of Esther and let Carson and several others squeeze in. Suddenly, the empty room became a bit crowded. Immediately, the sounds of zombies hitting the door and their nails scratching the door came from outside. It took a while for the sounds behind the door to gradually fade away. The people who came in thanked me one after another. Esther was stunned for a few seconds and quickly blocked in front of me, cutting off my interaction with the others. There were a few layers of dust on her snow-white little face, but it didn't reduce her beauty. Her red and sniffled nose made her look a bit more playful and cute. Esther took my hand and said, "Elise, I know you think they're troublesome and don't want to waste your supernatural power to save them, but they're living people." As soon as she said this, the people who had just been grateful to me immediately changed their expressions. Some people even snorted coldly and said, "Humph, if you don't want to save them, then don't. I'm not begging you." Carson's gaze was fixed on me, cold and stern. I sneered in my heart but pretended to be aggrieved and said, "Esther, why are you saying this? You know that after treating your wound from the zombie bite, more than half of my supernatural power was consumed, and I need time to recover." Esther bit her lower lip and hid her unwillingness. "Elise, I was in a hurry and forgot. Don't blame me." I stopped looking at her and instead said to the dozen or so people in front of me, "I will find a way to treat everyone, but every time I treat one person, I have to take a break to recover my energy, otherwise, I won't be able to treat the next person. So the best way is to treat you in the order of the severity of your wounds, from light to moderate to severe." Some people were holding children, and some were supporting their elderly relatives. After hearing my words, the anger in their eyes turned into surprise. They were the ones with the most serious injuries. Carson was a big shot from the capital circle. The 5 or 6 bodyguards around him, including himself, were only slightly injured. Being treated last meant a higher probability of being turned into a zombie. Carson's face darkened a bit. Esther wanted to say something more, but I had already turned around and ignored her anxious gaze. In the previous life, I treated whoever Esther asked me to. The first person I treated was Carson, and I didn't pay any attention to the condition of everyone's wounds at all. This was also the reason why some people blamed me for the pain of losing their relatives. Given a chance to live again, I won't be a tool in Esther's hands. Instead, I'll be a sharp knife stabbing towards her. The person with the most serious wound turned out to be a young man lying on the ground with a pale lip corner and excessive blood loss. I remembered that in the previous life, this person didn't even last an hour. After turning into a zombie, he was directly shot in the head by the bodyguards brought by Carson. When I helped this person up, there was some movement from Carson's side. "Wait." Carson covered the wound on his left hand and came up to me. "I'm from the capital city. As long as you save me first, I'll escort you to the rescue base later. When Esther heard the words, rescue base, her eyes immediately lit up, then, a look of jealousy flashed in her eyes as she looked at me. She tugged at my clothes and whispered to persuade me, Elise, why don't you save Carson first? He can take us to the rescue base. I shook off her hand. Esther, why have you become like this? Why do you want me to save Carson first and ignore the others? Just because he comes from a big family in the capital city, does having money and power mean you can do whatever you want? For the sound I made attracted everyone's attention. Yeah, why should he be saved first? It's the apocalypse, and money and power are nothing. What a selfish young girl. This girl looks clean and pure on the outside, but she actually has so many schemes in her heart. I bet she has a crush on this pretty boy. Neither of them is a good person. Facing the crowds, pointing and gossiping, Esther's face turned pale in an instant. Carson's face also turned red and then pale. I pushed them aside. Get out of the way. Don't disturb me while I'm saving people. If you delay my treatment, you're delaying the time of the remaining people and your own time. Carson's face twitched. Several people immediately surrounded Carson and Esther. They glared at them angrily. Don't you delay our benefactor from treating us. If you can't wait, treat yourselves. Sure enough, people are selfish. They only cry out in pain when the knife cuts into their own flesh. Once it involves their own interests, they fall apart immediately. I said calmly to Carson, who was pointing a gun at me, if you shoot me, we'll all die together. Carson glared at me but had to return to his original position. I treated the young man and then took a break for a while before starting to treat the others, except for the first person. I didn't use my supernatural power to replenish the physical strength of the other people in the previous life. After removing the virus from their bodies and repairing their wounds, I also provided them with energy. This gave them the ability to protect themselves to some extent in the apocalypse. However, in the end, they killed me and blamed everything on me. When it was Carson's turn, several of the bodyguards he brought with him had already turned into zombies. They were locked in another room by the uncles and aunts in the crowd. Carson's face was completely pale, and strange black lines extended from the injured arm to his chest and neck, and they gradually eroded his face. I proposed that amputation was necessary before treatment. Carson directly rushed towards me and tried to strangle my neck with his remaining strength. Say that again and see. A sneer played on my lips. Do you want to live or keep your arm? You make the choice. Esther's eyes widened. Elise, you just need to treat him a few more times, just like you saved me before. Why do you want to amputate his arm? I've said it before. After saving so many people, I don't have enough rest time to recover my supernatural power. Tears streamed down Esther's face, as if it were her arm that was going to be cut off. There must be another way, right, Elise? You can't be so selfish. Carson glanced at her again with his pale face. That glance seemed full of admiration. Me, selfish? I sneered. Well, there is a way. I used too much supernatural power when I saved you before, but I can absorb it back to treat Carson. But the consequence is that the virus in your body will relapse, and you'll turn into a zombie. Are you willing? Esther's face turned deathly pale. She opened her mouth but couldn't make any sound. Like a wild duck with its neck choked, Carson's gaze towards her gradually turned cold. At this moment, there was another cry for help from outside the door. I felt a chill in my heart. Strange. According to the previous life, no one would knock on the door at this time. Esther avoided Carson's gaze. I'll go and open the door. The person who came was our senior fellow apprentice, Conrad. On the surface, he was very kind to both me and Esther, but he had a different feeling for Esther. In the previous life, although he defended me several times when he saw me being framed, but Conrad thought Esther was innocent and naive. There must be some misunderstanding between us. On the day I was thrown out of the window, he just looked at me with regret. Later, Conrad and Esther went to Carson's base together. On the day the base was attacked by a zombie horde, he entrusted Esther to Carson's care and chose to sacrifice himself. I didn't expect that he was also reborn. Senior brother. Esther wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and looked aggrieved. She told him about my selfish deeds. Conrad looked at me and his face became a bit solemn. He pulled me to the corner. Actually, after being reborn, I'm very glad to see you and Esther. I was startled at first. The next second, his words made me freeze in place. But Elise, I don't understand why you have so much resentment and why your heart is so narrow. Even if Esther did something to let you down in the previous life, This life is a new beginning, why can't you try to trust others? 5. So, you want Esther to kill me again? I looked at him quietly, my fists clenched. Conrad, you say I'm narrow-minded and full of resentment. But you haven't tasted the feeling of being wronged. Have you ever experienced a feeling where someone clearly asks you for help, and you save her, but in the end, she tells others that I saved her with ulterior motives? In the previous life, at the last moment when I was thrown out of the window by the crowd, I angrily scolded Esther for her ingratitude, but she shrank behind Conrad and Carson, with tears in her eyes. She seemed to be showing helplessness and sadness. Elise, you saved me just to push me out at a critical moment to block the zombies for you. Scenes from the previous life flashed through my mind, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Conrad was stunned for a few seconds and then avoided my gaze. He adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Don't worry, Elise, you know that I value fairness the most, whether it's you or, will you shut up already? Before Conrad could finish his sentence, he was punched in the face, his glasses were knocked flying, and his fairly fair face immediately swelled up. He covered his face and looked at Carson's furious eyes in horror. Get lost. Stop being so hesitant, I'm almost dying. In this life, I didn't treat Carson in time, causing the virus to start invading Carson's brain cells. His corneas gradually turned white, he became violent. Esther stood there at a loss, constantly muttering, "Stop fighting, you guys, stop fighting." Unfortunately, Carson had long since lost his mind, and Conrad, after being punched, also fought back. The two who had gotten along harmoniously because of Esther in the previous life could only be in an opposing situation in this life. From the very beginning, I never thought of curing Carson so easily. Conrad's appearance helped me delay the timing of treating Carson. Carson was already injured, so he was quickly tied up by Conrad. Conrad knew very well that Carson was the future master of the base established by Carson's family. He suppressed his anger and said to me, "Elise, hurry up and save him." I spread my hands and said, as I said before, to save him, his arm needs to be amputated. But he doesn't agree. Seeing that Carson was unconscious, Esther bit her lower lip and said, "Elise, as long as we can save him, just do as you said." She looked at Conrad and sobbed, "Senior brother, do you think Carson will blame me when he wakes up?" "Woo." Conrad looked at her with a pained expression and pulled her into his arms, saying, "Don't cry, don't be afraid. When he wakes up, you can say that I asked Elise to do it." Esther's eyes flickered. She wanted to shirk all the responsibility, but I wouldn't let her have her way. I bent down, picked up an axe on the ground, and handed it to Conrad. "Here, since you guys agreed to do it, then you go and cut off his hand." Conrad's face looked ugly, and the way he looked at me seemed to be questioning me. Did it really have to be this ugly? I just smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Blood splashed amidst Carson's screams. Conrad wiped the blood off his face and threw away the axe. "Is this okay now?" I nodded and removed the virus from Carson's body. Due to excessive blood loss, he lost consciousness and fell into a coma directly. There were more and more zombies outside the window roaring and gnawing on the rotten flesh. I knew in my heart that a zombie horde was coming soon. 6. The walls and iron doors here wouldn't hold for long. Conrad obviously knew this, but he wasn't in a hurry. In the previous life, after I was pushed out by the crowd and fed to the zombies, the mercenaries of Carson's family would find this place and take Carson away, along with him and Esther. There were a few coughs in my ears. The sick and weak young man I had treated before finally slowly woke up. The broken hair on his forehead almost covered his entire face, and the man revealed a pair of cold and desolate eyes. "You saved me, that's right." I explained to him the supernatural power I possessed. "I'm Cedric, Carson's older brother." The man propped himself up and surveyed the surrounding environment. Seeing Carson half lying in the corner, the coldness in his eyes became even more evident. At this moment, there was a rumbling sound outside. Conrad, half holding Esther who looked curious, looked out of the window. Military tanks were rolling over the zombies and driving towards them from not far away. There were also 2 military trucks following behind. Conrad was delighted and turned to look at me. "Elise, if you can apologize to Esther and get along peacefully with her, how about I ask Carson to take you to the new base as well?" Esther seemed to sense something and looked at me triumphantly. I opened my lips. Before I could speak, a burst of unrestrained laughter suddenly attracted everyone's attention. Cedric held his stomach and said, "Sorry, I couldn't help it because it's so funny. Conrad squinted his eyes and was about to speak. With a loud bang, the wall was directly smashed open by the tank after the white smoke dissipated. Several tall mercenaries in camouflage uniforms appeared in front of them. Conrad and Esther immediately supported the semi-conscious Carson and walked towards them. The leading man with a square face and dark skin didn't even glance at them. He directly bypassed them. He came in front of Cedric, knelt on one knee, and said, "Young master, we've come to pick you up." Conrad looked up in astonishment. Carson, who had half of his body leaning on Conrad, just woke up at that moment. The pain of losing his arm made him let out a howl. Cedric didn't even raise his eyes and stretched out his hand to me. "Let's go, my savior." Conrad's face looked bad. "What did you do, Elise?" I spread my hands and looked innocent. "I didn't do anything. I just saved someone." Carson pushed Conrad away and stumbled up to the dark-skinned mercenary. "What are you doing?" "I'm not dead yet. I'm one of the candidates for the head of the family." But the mercenary didn't even look at him. "Second, young master. The head of the family said that the head of Carson's family doesn't need a cripple." Carson's face turned deathly pale, and he unbelievably pulled out his gun, but he was kicked by Cedric, and Cedric's right leg swept across his chin. The moment Carson was knocked to the ground, his nosebleed gushed out. His body kept twitching. Conrad beside him twitched his cheeks and couldn't say a word as he looked at me. It seemed that he just realized now. Carson, who had lost an arm, had long been abandoned by Carson's family. With the living Cedric here, no one would come to take Carson away. This was the reason why, in both the previous life and this life, Carson had desperately wanted to kill Cedric before this. In the previous life, after establishing the base, Carson held Esther in his arms and lamented. If it weren't for using his older brother Cedric to block the zombies, he wouldn't have been able to sit in the position of the head of the family. So, the first time I saw Cedric after being reborn, I recognized him. Cedric glanced indifferently at Carson on the ground and said, "Don't look, he's just a piece of trash." My wrist tightened, and he pulled my hand and walked outside. At this moment, Esther spread her arms and blocked in front of Cedric. You can't take her away. What are you going to do, you bad guy?" "Let go of Elise." 7. The mercenaries were holding guns, and no one else dared to step forward, except Esther. Her gaze was all fixed on Cedric. Her clear black and white eyes showed a very attractive stubbornness. She tried her best to keep her trembling body steady, giving people a sense of resolute vulnerability. "Esther," behind her, Conrad murmured in shock, but Esther didn't look back. Just when I thought Cedric would definitely stop, he directly sidestepped past her and indifferently spat out 2 words, "Ugly." Esther's body froze, and her face instantly turned pale. After just a few seconds, she ran down the stairs. At this time, Cedric and I had already gotten into the military truck. The way Esther looked at me was filled with suppressed hatred, but she still had a pitiful expression on her face. "Elise, don't leave me behind. Aren't I your best friend?" I ignored her. She gritted her teeth, and her facial features became distorted due to anxiety. "Take me with you." I was wrong. "Okay, Esther." Conrad's face changed drastically behind her, and he reached out to grab Esther's hand, but as the car started, Esther no longer cared about anything else and reached out her hand towards me in the car. "Elise, as long as you're willing to take me with you, I won't compete with you anymore. Please." I never thought of competing with anyone. I pried open her hand that was tightly gripping the edge of the truck. Esther's venomous gaze was fixed on me, and at this moment, the zombies gradually surrounded them. Conrad pulled Esther and fled in all directions. Countless zombies furiously rushed towards the big hole that had just been smashed open by the tank. People inside let out screams and scrambled to fall out of the window on the 3rd floor, just like dumplings being dropped. Then they were torn apart and bitten by the zombies with open mouths downstairs, covered in blood, just like what happened to me in the previous life. "Elise, I won't let you go even if I die." Esther's voice was gradually drowned out by the sound of the truck's engine. The car drove for several days and nights, and then they came to a large ship. The base of Carson's family was actually on a small island. Compared to the base Carson established on the mountain in the previous life, this one was safer. After that, Cedric established a laboratory on the island. I used my supernatural power to treat Cedric's people, and he could provide me with protection. Cedric and I could be said to have a mutually beneficial relationship. The peaceful days passed by in a flash, but I didn't expect that. One day, 2 months later, I saw Esther again. 8. Cedric's base was easy to defend but difficult to attack. What's more, the zombies couldn't swim, but the beginning of everything often starts with the internal collapse. The guards protecting the people on the island were basically the bodyguards Cedric brought from Carson's family and the mercenaries recruited later. Overnight, the guards on the outer perimeter all mutated into zombies. There was blood flying everywhere, and the zombies were crawling. The peaceful island was filled with wailing sounds, and people were fleeing in all directions. When Cedric found me, his face was solemn. Someone released the zombie virus on the island. Before, Cedric had told me that the virus that swept across all of humanity came from the biochemical weapons of Country A. But due to the entanglement of multiple interests, the virus leaked. That's why the current tragic situation occurred. I instantly understood what Cedric meant. Someone wanted to destroy the entire base of Carson's family. In less than 4 hours, almost half of the people lost their lives to the zombies, and the other half were bitten and infected. In the end, Cedric left the island in a hurry with dozens of people. The former paradise on Earth had now become a living hell. After discussing with Cedric, we planned to take refuge in the nearest base nearby. After passing through a wheat field, more than a dozen men with guns surrounded our group. At the moment, Cedric only had 2 bodyguards by his side, and the rest of the people were either old, weak, sick, or disabled. We were taken to an abandoned prison. Long time no see, Elise. You didn't expect me to still be alive, did you? Esther still had snow-white skin and red lips, spotless, like a pure little white flower. Behind her was Conrad. He had lost one eye, and the other eye had a gloomy look. Carson wasn't with them. He was probably dead. Seeing the man holding Esther, I roughly guessed how she had escaped the zombie horde. It's you, Cedric frowned. The man was Damien, the previous rival of Carson's family in the capital city. A scar at the corner of his eye spoiled his fairly handsome face. He took a puff of his cigarette and flicked the cigarette, but in his hand, it passed by Cedric's cheek and fell to the ground. There was disdain in the man's eyes. Cedric, after going around in circles, you still ended up in my hands. I guessed right. The zombie virus was spread on the island by the pigeons trained by Damien. In the eyes of someone like Damien, in the same area, there was no need for 2 rescue bases. Most of the survivors were attracted by Cedric's base. It was not only safe but also self-sufficient, and the remaining people, including gangsters and killers, gradually became the main members of Damien's base. They killed, looted, and committed all sorts of atrocities, and they happened to have supernatural powers. Therefore, they formed a powerful force. Cedric and I, along with the others, were locked in a dark and small room. As the sky gradually darkened, through the iron bars, Damien's people were feasting and drinking. Several children had been hungry for 2 days and were swallowing their saliva. A few fierce-looking men laughed heartily and dragged out several relatively young women from the room. They tore at the women's clothes in front of everyone and started doing that kind of thing. The women's screams and the men's curses mixed together. I said calmly, Esther, to take revenge on me, you're involving innocent people. Are you still a human being? As soon as I finished speaking, the woman emerged from the corner. What are you talking about, Elise? How could I take revenge on you? You're my best friend. Esther wiped the almost non-existent tears from the corner of her eyes and murmured, sometimes I really admire you. I sighed. You can pretend for 24 hours straight, and you can lie without changing your expression. Even a capybara isn't as calm as you. Cedric couldn't help but laugh. Esther's expression finally couldn't be maintained, and Conrad behind her squinted his eyes slightly. The next second, a sharp pain hit my chest. When I came to my senses, I had already fallen heavily to the ground. My cheek stung, and it was scratched by nails. Esther lifted my face. Elise, if you beg me now, I can still ask Damien to spare your life. 9. Cedric wanted to move, but he was held down by others. My teeth were a bit loose, and my mouth was full of the taste of rust. I spat out a mouthful of blood and looked up at Conrad. You look much better as a lackey than as a senior brother. Sharp-tongued, Conrad snorted coldly. Esther, do you think you can go far by relying on men every time? I looked at her while covering my chest. Esther looked at me as if I were something dirty, let go of my hand, and said coldly, take her away. The leader wants to see her. I was taken in front of Damien. There were only the 2 of us in the room. Damien looked me up and down. You look ordinary from a distance, and even more ordinary up close. I really don't understand why Cedric chose you instead of Esther. He smiled and stuck out his tongue to press against his teeth. His eyes were full of malicious disdain. Equivalent exchange, I said. Cedric and I have always had a relationship based on the exchange of value. I provide my supernatural power, and he provides help, instead of being like Esther, who sells her body. When he heard Esther's name, Damien's face darkened. In the blink of an eye, he had taken out a gun and shot me in the leg. A searing pain spread throughout my body. I couldn't help but cover my leg and wail, "Fine, let me see how you treat yourself." The man bent down and squatted in front of me, enjoying my painful expression. "You also have supernatural powers." No, something was wrong. How could a whole team of people have supernatural powers? Ever since I was captured, I had thought that Damien's people were strange. Even Conrad, who had just attacked me, had much stronger combat power. "You mean this?" Damien took out a stone. "Don't underestimate it. It can absorb other people's supernatural powers and transfer them to another person. Do you think Cedric will still think you're valuable if I take the supernatural power from you and give it to Esther?" He looked at me like I was an ant. "Esther is really something. Instead of using other supernatural powers, she insisted that I take your supernatural power." When he mentioned Esther, a trace of doting flashed in Damien's eyes. A chill rose from the soles of my feet and rushed up my spine all at once. So that's it. No wonder all of Damien's subordinates had supernatural powers. The supernatural powers of these people were all taken from others. He smiled faintly at me and gradually brought the stone closer to my forehead. A powerful suction force seemed to be pulling the supernatural power out of my body. A feeling of dizziness came over me, and I felt the rapid loss of my supernatural power. I gritted my teeth, pulled out the sharp chopsticks that I had sharpened earlier from my sleeve, and stabbed them into Damien's chest. "You," the man's body froze. He unbelievably coughed up a mouthful of blood and covered his chest. I had secretly picked up those chopsticks when Damien's subordinates were eating. I didn't expect them to come in handy here. I pressed the stone against Damien's forehead. "I'm taking your supernatural power." Before he completely died, I obtained Damien's ability of instantaneous movement. Then I cured the wound on my leg. Before leaving, I glanced at Damien on the ground. His eyes were open, and he had no breath left. In the corridor after opening the door, I met Conrad. "I didn't expect you to be able to escape." Conrad covered his lost left eye and said, "Elise, for the sake of our past relationship, if you dig out one of your eyes and break one of your hands, Esther and I will forgive you." 10. I couldn't help but sneer. "Conrad, your superior tone is disgusting. It's bad enough that you can't distinguish right from wrong, and you're still stubbornly persisting in your own way." I flashed in front of him and kicked out. Conrad was so scared by me that he took a few steps back. After absorbing Damien's supernatural power, I clearly felt that my combat power had increased. Conrad looked at me warily. "Elise, give up. I know you fell out with Esther because of me, but I won't like you. The only person I love is Esther. It's really unnecessary for you to harm Esther out of your jealousy." I was stunned for a moment and couldn't help laughing out loud. "Conrad, is that what Esther told you? That I like you? This is probably the funniest joke I've ever heard." Conrad swung the knife in his hand at me. "If it weren't for that, I can't think of a reason why you're targeting Esther." I dodged his attack and shot at the back of his hand. The knife fell to the ground, and Conrad covered his bloody hand. I dislocated the wrist of his other hand. "You're wrong. I've never liked you. I only regarded you as my brother, but you've really disappointed me." I raised my hand. The bullet hit Conrad in the chest. The moment he fell, Esther's figure flashed on one side of the corridor. "Esther." Conrad reached out his hand, trying to grab Esther. She ignored Conrad, who was struggling, and looked at him with contempt. She clicked her tongue and said, "Useless thing. Neither of you can even deal with a woman." Conrad widened his eyes and looked at the woman in front of him in astonishment. The junior schoolmate he had loved for 3 years, but she abandoned him at the last moment. Esther didn't even glance at him and turned to run towards the door on the other side. I squatted down. "Senior brother, is this what you've been chasing after? It's both disgusting and dirty." As soon as I finished speaking, Conrad stopped breathing with unwillingness. Images of getting along with him in the past flashed through my mind. In the previous life, I always regarded Conrad as a trusted elder brother. Now, the elder brother who helped me stay up all night to do experimental data and carried me to the hospital when I was sick had completely died in my heart in this life. I closed his eyes and walked outside. On the way, I met several guards and killed them all anyway. These hooligans had done a lot of heinous things following Damien on a daily basis. After getting the key, I released Cedric and the others. On the other hand, Esther came with a zombie army leaning against the railing on the second floor. She looked at the zombies pouncing towards us and smiled faintly. Elise, this is the consequence of going against me. 11. There were 3 zombies surrounding me, and there were 4 around Cedric. The 2 personal bodyguards were both injured. When the others saw this situation, they quickly locked the door they had just come through. The iron fence opened automatically, and there were more and more zombies. Esther hooked her finger at Cedric. If you help me kill Elise, I'll tell you the secret of the zombie virus. What do you think? Or if you kill Elise, I'll be your girlfriend. How about that? Cedric raised his hand and wiped the blood off his face. Ugly people make more trouble. Esther slapped the railing angrily, and her face twisted. Why do you reject me? Again and again. What's so good about Elise? With a creak, accompanied by Esther's scream, the railing broke. Her whole body was hanging in midair. Some zombies were attracted by the sound and reached out towards Esther's body, which was half hanging in the air. Save me, please. At this time, I found the control room inside. I pressed the button for the main gate. The iron door cut off the zombies' advance. There were still dozens of zombies left in the remaining room. Elise, please save me. I don't want to die. Please. Esther looked at me in a panic. We were the best classmates and friends, don't you remember? Cedric glanced at her with contempt and then turned to ask me, is she suffering from schizophrenia? One moment she wants to kill you, and the next moment when something happens to herself, she asks you to save her. Is she an idiot? I said, in a life and death situation, to save her life. She just doesn't care about her dignity anymore. Elise, don't be so heartless. Here. Esther's hand gradually slipped down. The zombies below had already touched her shoes. Esther desperately retracted her feet upwards, and the iron fence creaked. Cedric and I, along with a few others, climbed up to the second floor. Her eyes sparkled with surprise, and she reached out her hand to me. Elise, are you here to save me? Before she could finish speaking, a zombie with a swaying head bit into her calf. It tore off the flesh along with the fascia, and blood spattered. The scene was bloody. Esther let out a scream. In the moment of struggling, she fell into the group of zombies along with the railing. Her throat was bitten through by the zombies. On the day the apocalypse arrived, I awakened my healing supernatural power. Then I used my teleportation ability to attract the zombies, and Cedric led the people who were still alive to another escape route in the prison. Everyone got out alive. Cedric and I sat in the wheat field to rest, looking at the prison surrounded by flames. Not far away, I saw Cedric smile for the first time. I asked a question that I had always wanted to know out of curiosity. Cedric, we've known each other for a while. I'm really curious about what your supernatural power is. Cedric smiled indifferently. Time regression. He told me that he had used this ability to regress time 3 times. The last time he saved himself and a girl. My fingers resting on my knees trembled slightly. Was that girl me? Cedric nodded. Let's go. We're going to find a new base. I followed his gaze and saw a red dot on the map. That was the location of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. Story 2. My boyfriend suddenly sent me a strange message. Pack your things and leave the dormitory immediately. I'll pick you up downstairs in the dormitory. I thought my boyfriend was planning a surprise for me on May 20th, and I secretly rejoiced, so I didn't reply. I was just about to put on makeup to give him a surprise too. Unexpectedly, the next moment, my boyfriend made a video call. After hanging up the video call, I looked flustered and pulled my suitcase filled with things and ran out. Later, the apocalypse came, and the whole city fell into chaos. My roommate who killed me in my previous life turned into a little zombie, while my boyfriend and I were enjoying a hot pot in the sealed apartment, feeling very comfortable. On May 20th, I got up early in the morning and put on makeup to go on a date with my boyfriend. The original appointment time was 12 o'clock, but my boyfriend said he would give me a big surprise the night before. So I got up early in the morning and started to put on makeup right away. Since it was the weekend, my roommates were still sleeping. I put on earphones and carefully watched makeup tutorial videos on Hazel, a platform, assuming, to learn how to do makeup. Suddenly, there was a ding-dong, and a message popped up. The earphones weren't connected properly. Damn it, my roommate mumbled something and turned over. I looked in the direction where my roommate was sleeping. A faint snoring sound came. She wasn't woken up. that was a relief. My roommate has a really bad case of getting angry when woken up, and she goes to bed late and gets up late, but I usually go to bed early and wake up before 7 o'clock the next day, and I'm at the library at 7:30 on the dot. Of course, it's not that I like studying, it's because I have to write novels. I reconnected my earphones. While patting the cushion foundation on my face, I casually clicked on WeChat. It was a message from my boyfriend, Jackson. It was a strange sentence: pack your things and leave the apartment immediately, I'll pick you up downstairs. Was the surprise coming earlier? This guy, he didn't say so earlier. I haven't even finished my makeup yet. I secretly poked fun at him in my heart. Right after that, a video call came through from the other side. Goodness, it seems to be a really big surprise. Hee. While running towards the balcony, I was sweetly imagining in my heart. I clicked to answer the call, and my boyfriend's anxious voice came from the other end of the video. Adeline, right now, this instant, pack your things and come downstairs. I'm waiting for you downstairs. Hurry up, right now. Why are you in such a hurry? We agreed on 12 o'clock. I haven't even finished my makeup yet, I said in a hushed voice. Jackson on the other end of the video was silent for a moment, and then he also lowered his voice. Like me, I had a dream that in 7 days, you would turn into a zombie. Scared? Damn, zombies. Are you serious? Tell me the details quickly, I said with great excitement, not realizing that my roommate had been woken up by me. A faint gaze was fixed on me from behind. Jackson on the other end of the video immediately returned to a serious tone. Adeline, I'm not kidding. Now pack your suitcase. Take all your electrical devices, daily necessities, everything you can take. I'm waiting for you downstairs. As he spoke, he turned the camera around to show me his location. I took a closer look, and sure enough, he was downstairs in my dormitory building. The excited mood I had just now instantly turned heavy. It seemed he wasn't lying to me. After hanging up the video call, I returned to the dormitory with a solemn expression, took out my suitcase, and quickly packed my things. Thinking about it carefully, Jackson doesn't usually joke around. Since he said this, there must be a reason. He's 2 years older than me. Not only is he my boyfriend, but he also takes care of me like a father. Just entering my senior year of college, the two of us used the money we saved to pay the down payment for a 120 square meter flat in the city. There are also my daily necessities in that house, so there aren't many things to pack. I usually live in the dormitory because our school stipulates that students must stay in the dormitory on school days. Only on weekends do I stay in the house we bought for a short while. Adeline, are you moving out? A faint voice suddenly sounded in the quiet dormitory. I stopped packing my things. It was Amelia, the dormitory monitor. She pays special attention to our violations of discipline because of the unwritten rule in our school that if one person in the dormitory violates the rules, the dormitory monitor will also be punished. I secretly thought something was wrong in my heart, and my brain was running at high speed to figure out how to deal with it. Just as I was thinking, another roommate, Cora's voice came faintly from behind the curtain. Don't you know the school's punishment for students who move out of the dormitory without permission? Roommate Piper also came down from the upper bunk. All three of them were awake. 3 pairs of eyes with dissatisfaction were staring at me simultaneously. My brain froze for a moment, not knowing how to respond. What should I do? What should I do? My phone screen lit up. It was a message from Jackson. I turned my back to them, so naturally, they couldn't see the content on the phone. Adeline, if they don't let you go, just say that your relative has come to City C to see a doctor, and you need to take care of them. I immediately understood. I turned around and wailed pitifully to the dormitory monitor. My second aunt is ill and has come here to see a doctor. I have to take care of her now. But don't worry, I'll be back on Monday morning. As I made a solemn promise, I also squeezed out a few tears. I had just applied loose powder, and the light was not good in the morning. My face looked extremely pale, and the three of them naturally didn't suspect me. The dormitory monitor paused, as if thinking of something, and waved her hand, saying, "All right, you can go." When the other two saw that the dormitory monitor had given the go-ahead, they didn't make things difficult for me anymore. I quickly packed my things and trotted downstairs. Jackson was indeed waiting for me downstairs, and there was also an SUV next to him. When Jackson saw me, the frown on his face instantly relaxed. He quickly stepped forward, took my luggage from my hand, and whispered to me, "Don't look behind you. pretend to be sad. Your roommates are looking at us from the windowsill." As he spoke, he pushed me into the passenger seat. From the rearview mirror, I saw the cold gaze of the dormitory monitor. He also got in, started the car, and drove towards the gate. I was still a bit dazed when I was pushed into the passenger seat. I didn't expect my roommates to be suspicious of me, actually, thinking about it, it's quite normal. I was packing my things and taking almost all of my daily necessities that I usually stocked up on. Usually, when they ran out of tissues or other things, they would just use mine directly without even saying thank you, as if it were taken for granted. Once I bought a very expensive hair removal device and carefully locked it in the cabinet, but when I came back the next day, the hair removal device in the cabinet was gone, and the lock was also missing. I immediately thought that they had used it. Sure enough, I found my hair removal device in the corner of the balcony. When they came back and I questioned them, the dormitory monitor casually said, "What evidence do you have to prove that we used it?" I was so angry that I laughed instead. "What, aren't you afraid of turning into a gorilla after using that hair removal device?" After that, I rarely stocked up on things in the dormitory anymore, and I also moved all my valuable things to the apartment that Jackson and I bought, pulling myself out of my thoughts. I asked Jackson, who was concentrating on driving, "Baby, you said that the drug researched by the Foreign Biological Research Institute your friend works in has mutated, then will there be an apocalypse?" Jackson furrowed his brows and nodded. "It's possible, and my dream was very vivid. In 7 days, the zombie outbreak will be complete, so we need to stock up on supplies immediately. We'll talk about other things after we're done stocking up." Just as I was about to close my eyes and take a nap, I suddenly thought in my mind that our parents still didn't know about this zombie situation. I quickly turned on my phone. Jackson seemed to know what I was going to do and said calmly, "I've already informed our parents on both sides and asked them to stock up on supplies." They believed me, and they must be sweeping the supermarket by now. I gave him a grateful smile. The repeated COVID-19 outbreaks in recent years have already tormented the elderly. They will definitely believe what Jackson said. This time, as for our siblings, Jackson is an only child, and I have an elder sister. After graduating from college, my sister went back to our hometown in the Northwest and became a doctor, while I'm studying in a city in the central part of the country. If the zombie situation comes, she definitely won't be able to stay out of it. Thinking of this, I suddenly felt a pang of anxiety in my heart. I quickly asked Jackson, "Did you tell my sister about this?" I called her first thing, but she didn't answer. She must still be sleeping. I've already sent her a text message to inform her. He paused for a moment, as if knowing what I was thinking, and then continued, "Your sister definitely won't stay out of it. She's a doctor, and doctors have their responsibilities. But these are zombies that can bite people. No, I have to call her again." I dialed the number. It was already past 10 o'clock, and she should be up by this time. Sure enough, a lazy voice came from the other end of the phone. Not long after, "Hello, sis, I'm telling you that there will be a zombie outbreak in 7 days. The situation is urgent, and I don't have time to tell you the reason now. Immediately go and stock up on supplies, reinforce the doors and windows, and stay with our parents. Don't go anywhere," I shouted anxiously, as if knowing what she was going to say next. I didn't give her a chance to reply. "These are zombies that can bite people. It's different from an ordinary virus. You're just a doctor. You can't turn the zombies back into humans." Before I could finish, I was interrupted by my sister. "Whether it's zombies, or zombies in other forms, or the COVID-19 virus, as a doctor, I have the responsibility to defend the health of the people on the front line. All right, stop trying to persuade me to leave the hospital and hide in a safe place. You and Jackson hide well. You're still just a student, don't worry. I won't risk my life recklessly. I'll protect myself." "Okay," I replied, with tears in my eyes, and the phone had already been hung up. In the face of the choice between great righteousness and personal concerns, she chose the former. Jackson parked the car in the parking lot and handed me a tissue, comforting me. "Don't worry, they're in the West. The zombies won't be able to run that far. We should be more worried about ourselves now." I regained my composure. The zombie virus started abroad. According to the direction of spread, the coast, the central region, and then the West. We should protect ourselves first, too. We went to the largest shopping mall in City C. There were all kinds of goods here. Jackson and I split up to act. He was responsible for buying daily necessities, and I was responsible for buying food and other items. Since we were buying a large quantity, we explained the situation to the mall manager in advance and made up a reason that we, as college students, were opening a small supermarket. After hearing this, the mall manager smiled and gave me a thumbs up. Young people, having the courage to start a business, I'll give you a 20% discount. Well, this manager is reliable. Now we can have more money to buy supplies. I was just thinking about whether to remind the manager to stock up more when I found that Jackson was on the same page as me. After hearing the manager's words, Jackson was touched by his kindness and pretended to casually say, "Uncle, the reason we're opening a small supermarket is to prepare for future epidemics. You should also stock up more supplies. The epidemic can come at any time these days. Who knows when the city will be locked down again? What do you think?" The manager still smiled and said, "Okay, I'll pay attention. You two work hard on your business." After saying goodbye to the manager, we headed straight for the mall. First, I went to the rice and flour area. If we only eat rice for lunch, a bag of rice can last about a month. And if we only eat noodles for dinner, a bag of flour can last 2 months. I purchased 20 bags of Northeast Pearl rice, 15 bags of flour, and 30 boxes of dried knife-cut noodles. Each box contains 30 packets. This is enough food for a year. Then I went to the bean area. Porridge is essential, so I bought 20 caddies each of black rice, millet, mung beans, and red beans. Next were some instant foods. I bought 10 boxes of compressed biscuits. Each box contains 30 small packets, in flavors like fruit, cumin, and meat paste. These have a long storage time and can be saved for later. I bought 5 boxes of frozen dumplings. Each box has 12 bags. I only bought 5 boxes. On average, one bag can last for 2 meals, so this can provide 120 meals. The storage time of frozen dumplings is similar to that of compressed biscuits, but eating frozen dumplings for a long time is not good for the stomach. In the era of the zombie outbreak, physical health is even more important. Then came the canned foods. Canned foods are mainly for when we can't cook during the zombie outbreak and can be used as breakfast and lunch. I bought 30 boxes of fruit canned foods. Each box contains 20 cans. I bought 3 boxes each of 10 flavors: strawberry, yellow peach, apple, orange, rambutan, cherry, lychee, bayberry, hawthorn, and grape. I bought 20 boxes of soup canned foods. Each box contains 30 cans. I bought 4 boxes each of 5 flavors: ginseng chicken boneless canned soup, chicken soup meal replacement canned soup, old chicken soup concentrated canned soup, small bone beef bone soup canned soup, and native chicken soup canned soup. I bought 20 boxes of vegetarian canned foods. Each box contains 30 cans. I bought 4 boxes each of 5 flavors: multi-vegetable assorted vegetable canned foods, canned tomatoes with soybeans, canned spicy cabbage, canned spicy pickled radish, and canned spicy enoki mushrooms. I looked at the seafood canned foods on the shelf and thought for a while. Jackson and I don't like seafood canned foods, but in the face of the apocalypse, we should stock up as much as possible. Moreover, the boss stipulated that the number of canned foods purchased cannot exceed a certain limit, and the other canned foods we bought have already reached the limit, so I had to make sure to buy some of each kind. I bought 6 boxes of seafood canned foods. Each box contains 10 boxes. I bought 3 boxes each of spicy snail meat and spicy lobster tails. I really couldn't stand the other seafood, so I only bought these 2 kinds. Meat canned foods are our favorite. I didn't hold back and chose 20 boxes, with 20 cans in each box. I bought 5 boxes each of 5 spice braised beef canned foods, curry beef canned foods, twice cooked pork canned foods, and luncheon meat canned foods. Then came the vegetables. I only bought enough vegetables for 2 months, although it exceeds the normal storage time of vegetables. I have learned various methods of preserving vegetables before, so I bought 2 months worth. I bought 30 caddies each of potatoes, sweet potatoes, and purple sweet potatoes, 20 caddies each of baby cabbage, lettuce, and romaine lettuce, and various other vegetables, 10 caddies each of coriander, green onions, and garlic sprouts, 15 caddies each of garlic scapes, green beans, and edamame, 25 caddies each of tomatoes. eggplants, and yams, and 10 caddies each of millet peppers, green peppers, and red peppers. I also bought 5 trays each of eggs, duck eggs, and quail eggs. Eggs have a relatively short storage time, so I bought fewer of them. After buying these, I went straight to the seasoning area and bought enough seasonings for 2 years for each type. After buying all these, I looked at my Alipay balance. I was shocked when I saw it. I originally had 250,000 yuan saved, and now there was only a little over 150,000 yuan left. I never expected that these things would cost so much, but in the face of the apocalypse, money is worthless, money is precious, but life is even more precious. Next, what I bought was of utmost importance, the source of life, water. The water in this mall was stored in a huge warehouse and was usually only supplied to various small supermarkets. When the boss heard that I wanted to buy a large quantity of water, he took me in without hesitation and let me choose slowly. He told me to come out and tell him when I was done. I happily nodded and agreed. This person didn't suspect the purpose of my buying so much water. I immediately transferred the deposit, and the boss happily accepted the money. I stepped into this warehouse. The warehouse was in the shape of a cross, with all kinds of drinking water and water storage containers. I was on the shelf, choosing which kind of water was more convenient to store when a creepy sound suddenly came from behind me. Hoof, hoof. It didn't sound like a human voice. I was terrified and slowly turned around. In front of my eyes was a somewhat familiar figure. She was enclosed in a water tank. When I came in, she was behind the door, so I didn't notice her. At this moment, she was grinning at me with a strange and eerie look in her eyes. Before I could scream, I was covered my mouth and dragged out. 3. Shoo, don't make a sound. A hand with a familiar smell covered my mouth. The familiar smell enveloped my whole body. It was Jackson. We quickly rushed out of the supermarket. All the way, people around were still chatting and laughing as they selected goods on the shelves. Only I knew that there was a monster locked up in the supermarket, and it might come out and attack others at any moment. This made me believe even more that the zombies Jackson said were real. We didn't plan to continue purchasing supplies in this supermarket, so we instructed the manager to prepare the things we had just purchased, and we would come to pick them up in the afternoon. Jackson and I drove to a restaurant, planning to have a meal and discuss our next plan. After my nerves settled down a bit, I nervously asked Jackson what that thing was that I encountered in the supermarket. Although I subconsciously knew it had something to do with zombies, I still didn't want to think deeper. Jackson took a sip of water. That scene just now had made him scared. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and took me out. Otherwise, if that monster was alerted, the consequences would be unimaginable. I suspect that the zombies in our city are because of that thing caused it. That monster might be a mutated zombie. As for why it was there, Jackson said this, and suddenly his pupils dilated, and his voice involuntarily became excited. The back door of that supermarket is connected to the hospital. The zombies ran out from the hospital. But didn't you say the zombie outbreak would be in 7 days? I asked eagerly. If the zombie situation came earlier, then we didn't have much time left. But what he said next made me drop my jaw in surprise. It was indeed 7 days later in the last life, on May 27th, that the outbreak occurred. Jackson pondered for a moment and finally confessed the truth. After listening to Jackson's recollection, I finally knew that my boyfriend Jackson had been reborn, for on the morning of May 20th in the last life, Jackson received a call from his friend in the biological research laboratory. The other person urgently and fearfully warned Jackson that the virus carried by a certain organism being studied in their biological research laboratory had leaked, and told Jackson not to go out for a few days. But Jackson, being so infatuated with me, didn't take his friend's words to heart. On May 20th, he happily went on a date with me. In the following days, he only simply stocked up on some food and didn't take what his friend said seriously until the 7th day, that is, on May 27th, there was suddenly a riot in a supermarket near our school. First, a security guard firmly bit a vegetable-selling ant. Then, the people around went up to persuade them, but they were also bitten, and the situation got out of control. You bite me, and I bite you. In one morning, all those who were bitten turned into biting zombies. At this moment, Jackson realized that what his friends said was true. He contacted me while notifying our parents to take precautions, and I had visited that supermarket the day before. When my roommates heard about the zombies in the supermarket, They didn't let me into the dormitory, and I was locked outside, on the campus. A large number of zombies also poured in. We originally had a chance to escape, but my so-called good roommates deliberately made noises to attract the attention of the zombies to us. Jackson drove to save me, but we were both bitten by the zombies. Then Jackson was reborn back to 7 days ago. After listening to Jackson's words, I broke out in a cold sweat on my back. The last bit of pity I had for them disappeared completely. My roommates shut me out and wanted to kill me. I had no grudges against them, yet they were so heartless. Jackson's eyes were complicated. To keep me from being sad, he diverted my attention and said, "Okay, now is not the time to settle accounts with them. We have less than 7 days left. As for that monster in the supermarket, based on my observation and research in both this life and the last life, zombies really like water, but once they are soaked in water, they lose their mobility." There weren't many people in the restaurant at this time, but Jackson still lowered his voice when speaking, in case someone with ulterior motives overheard. 5. After the meal, we first rented a freight truck for 5 days to transport supplies, then we immediately drove to a large furniture and home appliance market, planning to buy 2 large refrigerators. Together with the one in the house, there would be 3 in total. We also bought 3 solar panels, which could be placed on the balcony. The balcony of the house we bought was quite large. Then we purchased self-installing shelves, a projector for watching dramas and having fun, 50 power banks. One power bank could provide enough power for a mobile phone to last for 5 days. We bought 100 garbage bags and 15 trash cans. Buying more trash cans could be used to grow fruits and vegetables like strawberries and green beans. In order to facilitate the disposal of garbage, we specifically replaced the toilet in the bathroom with one that could crush toilet paper and sanitary napkins. The sewer in the kitchen's vegetable washing area was also replaced with one that could crush garbage. These installations by the workers would only be done the next day. After finishing all these, it was already 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Jackson and I drove the freight truck to the supermarket again. We moved the food and daily necessities we ordered in the morning onto the truck one by one. After finishing this, it was already past 8 o'clock in the evening. To avoid being noticed, we planned to transport the supplies to the house in the middle of the night. Although the occupancy rate of the community we lived in was low, with only 3 or 4 households in each building, for greater secrecy and to not be discovered by those with ill intentions, we still decided to buy supplies during the day and transport them at night. After driving the freight truck into the community parking lot, it was already 9:30 in the evening. The supermarket we chose was far from the community, which was also one of Jackson's strategies. After leaving the community, Jackson and I were so hungry that we went to the nearest Hidalgo restaurant. While eating, we discussed the next steps for collecting supplies. We chose a 4-grid hot pot, with 1 clear water pot, 1 tomato pot, 1 spicy pot, and 1 nourishing pot. After the dishes were served, Jackson and I continued to discuss the preparation of supplies. While I was greedily eating the fat beef he fed me, Jackson suddenly put down his chopsticks and anxiously picked up his phone. I quickly asked what happened and if there was anything we had forgotten. Jackson flipped through his phone and replied, "We almost forgot a crucial problem." "What problem?" I tensed up and asked in confusion. "Security, our security problem." Jackson looked around to make sure no one was listening, and then continued, "Do you remember that when we decorated the house, to save money, we used ordinary glass? And the door wasn't the strongest one either. Even if we've stocked up a large amount of food, we can't avoid the zombies that break in through the door, nor the sinister intentions of people." After listening, I suddenly realized it and patted my head. How stupid of me not to think of this. After paying the down payment, Jackson and I had no money left in our wallets. Although we earned money later, we didn't think of replacing the glass and doors. If the zombies broke out, although we had stocked up a lot of food, if we were targeted by bad people, with that door of ours, it could be broken open. In no time, Jackson comforted me. "It's okay, there's still enough time. We have 6 days left. It seems that we can't move that batch of supplies tonight. I'll contact the decoration company now and ask the workers to come and install the new doors and windows tomorrow. Let's have a good rest today, and at the same time, check to see what else we need to buy that we haven't thought of yet." When I was purchasing food in the morning, Jackson had already bought all the daily necessities and other supplies. In the afternoon, we added some commonly used and convenient household items. Now, thinking carefully, there were still many things we hadn't prepared, so Jackson contacted the decoration company, and I logged onto the largest domestic Canday app on my phone and searched for what to prepare if zombies came. Soon, many netizens' suggestions popped up. After integrating them, I started to write down the supplies we needed to buy next on the tablet. First, in terms of food, besides the food I had prepared, we should also add some, such as self-heating hot pots. The biggest advantage of self-heating hot pots is that the dishes can be cooked without electricity. There were also some foods we had overlooked, like corn and instant noodles. Although instant noodles need to be cooked, they have a long shelf life and can be saved for the middle stage of the apocalypse. Corn is very filling and is easy to store after the water is drained out. It's a very suitable food and can also be cooked in the hot pot. We also need to prepare seeds so that we can grow vegetables on the balcony and be self-sufficient. There are also milk powder, chocolate, frozen dumplings, sugar, and so on, and meat. We were so focused on stocking up on food that we forgot about meat. Although there might be water and power outages after the apocalypse, if we use solar energy, it can still last for a long time. We also need to prepare medicine. We should stock up a lot of vitamin C, iodine tincture, anti-inflammatory drugs, and cold and fever medicine. Secondly, for the preparation of security supplies, besides the anti-theft door and bulletproof glass, we should also prepare soundproof cotton, blackout curtains, anti-peep films, and drones. Drones are also very important in the apocalypse. They can be used to distract the zombies and send messages. In addition to these, there are some self-defense weapons, such as knives, axes, iron chains, and locks. After recording, Jackson also put down his phone and let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that the decoration matters had been settled. Thinking of this, I suddenly remembered whether we had enough money to buy the remaining supplies. I had 150,000 yuan available now, and the other 200,000 yuan was the pocket money my parents gave me when I started college. I specifically deposited it for a 5-year term. Damn it, I can't withdraw it for another year. Jackson seemed to know what I was worried about. He picked up a piece of meat for me and said, as if to comfort me, "Don't worry, there's still a lot of money. You don't have to worry about this, and our parents have already started preparing supplies." He looked as proud as a child, seeking my praise. My parents believe in science very much. It's really remarkable that Jackson was able to persuade my parents to buy supplies in case of emergency. But now I'm worried about my sister. Jackson saw what was on my mind and then said, "Don't worry, your sister will be fine." I suddenly looked up and asked him, "Why, does my sister believe in your story of being reborn?" "No, she's a doctor. She's definitely safer than us because she still has to research the vaccine to save the people. The country will protect them." Hearing this, I finally let out a sigh of relief. After the meal, Jackson and I went to the supermarket near our community again and bought the supplies for normal storage. Then we went back to the house. The house we bought was a large flat with 4 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. One room was a study, and the other 3 were bedrooms. The kitchen was also quite large, big enough to fit 2 refrigerators. After careful discussion, Jackson and I decided to turn 2 bedrooms and 1 study into storage rooms. Fortunately, when we decorated the house, we had the foresight to build a lot of cabinets in the living room and the corridor. Now they can come in handy. The cabinets in the living room and the corridor can be used to store daily necessities like toilet paper, wet wipes, shower gel, shampoo, facial cleanser, and so on. The drinking water and energy drinks should be placed separately in one bedroom, and the other food should be placed in another bedroom. Shelves need to be installed in both bedrooms to store the supplies. The refrigerators are for storing meat, vegetables, fruits, and other foods that are easy to spoil. After discussing all these, it was already 12:30. Jackson and I were shocked when we looked at the time. We didn't expect it to be so late. We had to arrange for the decoration workers to change the doors and windows tomorrow, so we needed to conserve our energy. So the 2 of us simply washed up and went to bed to recharge our energy. The next day, the decoration workers arrived earlier than the agreed time. There were 7 or 8 of them. I looked at Jackson, and he winked at me. It turned out that Jackson had paid the workers double the usual salary, so they were enthusiastic and came quickly. afraid that such a good opportunity would be snatched away by others. I supervised the work with panda eyes, and Jackson went downstairs to buy breakfast. We installed 2 entrance doors, and all the glass was replaced with bulletproof glass. Even if an airplane came, it couldn't make a hole in it, perhaps because of the money. They finished the installation in less than half a day. I specially distributed the prepared mineral water and lunch to the decoration workers to thank them for their hard work, and they left happily. In the afternoon, the furniture we bought yesterday was also delivered. Since the store we chose was far away, the delivery driver showed a dissatisfied expression on his face. I was sensitive and immediately noticed his mood, so I went downstairs and bought several boxes of soft Zhonghua cigarettes and asked Jackson to give them to the delivery driver and the other guys. The driver immediately beamed with joy and, without saying a word, urged the guys to carry the refrigerator, solar generator, and other things upstairs. When they were installing, I deliberately pretended to make a phone call and pretended to be making a short video. They didn't suspect anything. After the installation was completed, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. After seeing them off, Jackson and I charged the 50 power banks we bought. We could only charge 20 of them by plugging them into all the sockets in the house. We would charge the remaining ones in the following days. Then we went out and had another hot pot meal. After the apocalypse, it would be very rare to have such a luxurious hot pot. After the hot pot, we went to the pharmacy to buy the required medicine and to the hardware store to buy some self-defense weapons. Then we went to the place where they sold meat and bought 50 caddies of pork ribs, 50 caddies of streaky pork, and 50 caddies of beef. We asked the aunt who sold the meat to cut them into small pieces and pack them. The aunt who sold the meat was used to people buying so much meat, so she didn't find it strange and happily cut the meat for us. When we got home, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. At this time, everyone was off work and at home, relaxing and having fun. Moreover, there were only 5 or 6 households in our building, and each household had its own elevator. No one would notice us. After freezing the meat we bought, we replaced the charged power banks and charged the remaining ones. Jackson and I took the elevator all the way down to the basement and carried the items on the freight truck to the 19th floor one trip after another using a trolley. During this process, we met an uncle downstairs in the elevator. The uncle looked at us suspiciously and then turned to stare ahead. I, who was usually quick-witted, couldn't think of a solution. Just then, Jackson said in a not too loud voice affectionately, "Honey, you should just stay home and take care of the baby in the future. Don't go out and buy things by yourself. Look, I bought so many things that it's enough for you to eat for a month." After hearing this, I let out a long sigh of relief and then realized that he was teasing me. I secretly gave him a punch, but fortunately, we dispelled the uncle's doubts, and Jackson and I had a smooth journey. After moving all the goods, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. Jackson and I were exhausted, looking at the unorganized supplies piled up in the living room and the bedroom. We were really too tired, so we just fell asleep. On the 3rd day, there were still 4 days left until the apocalypse. Jackson and I slept until late in the morning before slowly waking up. Most of the supplies were almost ready. The next task was to organize the supplies. The carriage of the freight truck was at a low temperature, so the vegetables and fruits we bought hadn't gone bad. Jackson and I stuffed all the food into one refrigerator in the kitchen and one refrigerator in the study. This food was enough for us to eat for a year and a half. In the remaining 3 days, we would keep improving our supplies and try our best to let more people know about this disaster. Stocking up more supplies and being prepared is the most we can do. In the blink of an eye, it was the night before the zombie outbreak. After dinner, Jackson and I were brushing short videos in the living room. I noticed that there was a case of people biting people in a small coastal city, but the video disappeared soon after. Not long after, the phone suddenly rang. I took a look and saw that it was Piper. It was definitely not a good thing if she called. Sure enough, as soon as I answered the call, her harsh voice came out of the phone. "Adeline, you don't reply to messages and don't answer the video calls. What do you mean, you don't plan to come back to the dormitory? Do you think this dormitory is your home, where you can come and go as you please?" The background on the other end of the phone was very noisy. She must not be making the call in the dormitory. Seeing that I didn't respond, she continued, "The dormitory's electricity bill is overdue. Even if you don't come back, you still have to pay the electricity bill, right? Okay, I won't say more. I'm in a hurry for a date. She seemed to have forgotten to hang up the phone, judging from the sounds on the other end. It seemed that she was in the supermarket downstairs from our dormitory. I didn't hang up the phone immediately. I opened WeChat and flipped open the group chat that was on mute. A flood of 99 plus messages popped up instantly. The 3 people in the group were constantly at ing me to pay the electricity bill. I immediately found the settlement statement and forwarded 20 yuan to them. After sending the money, I continued to pull Jackson to watch the variety show. Tomorrow was the day of the zombie outbreak. Jackson didn't seem to be interested in the variety show. Instead, he furrowed his brows and seemed to be thinking about something. I got up and pulled the curtains in the living room. In fact, even if I didn't pull the curtains, people outside couldn't see that our lights were on, but just in case, I still pulled the curtains. After pulling the curtains, I sat down next to Jackson and tentatively asked, "Are you still worried about something?" Jackson hung his head in frustration and mumbled, "I always feel that we've forgotten an important part, but I just can't remember what it is." I hugged him in my arms, trying to comfort him. "Now we have plenty of food, medicine, and supplies. We don't have to worry about safety either. Moreover, we've also made our family and friends take precautions. We've already done our best to help as many people as we can." I tilted my head and rolled my eyes. "There shouldn't be anything to worry about. Let's go to bed, shall we?" Jackson didn't say anything. I turned my head to look and, to my surprise, he was already sound asleep. I tiptoed to the bedroom to get a blanket and carefully covered him with it. These days, Jackson had been busy running around buying supplies, transporting them, and even buying rice and noodles and delivering them to our parents' homes. I was grateful to him. In the 21st century, it was really my blessing to have such a good boyfriend. I yawned. It was getting late. I went to the kitchen to prepare tomorrow's breakfast porridge. First, I scooped 2 spoons each of red beans, rice, and Job's tears, washed them with clean water, and put them in the porridge pot for later use. I set the time from 7 o'clock to 7:30 tomorrow morning. Then I took out 5 eggs from the refrigerator, planning to make tea-flavored eggs. I first put the eggs in the pot and set the cooking time for 8 minutes. Then I took out the ingredients, bay leaves, cinnamon, dried chili peppers, etc., and set them aside. Then I added light soy sauce, dark soy sauce, and salt to a bowl. After I finished preparing, the eggs were also cooked. I poured these seasonings into the pot one by one and set the cooking time for 20 minutes. This way, after leaving it overnight, the tea-flavored eggs would taste even better. Then I washed the sweet potatoes and placed them on the chopping board for later use. After finishing all the preparations, it was already 11:30. I looked at Jackson, who was snoring away in the living room, and yawned as I went to the bedroom to sleep soundly. At 7:40 in the morning, I woke up. It wasn't because I had the habit of getting up early, but because I was woken up by the weight on my body. When I woke up and took a look, it was Jackson. Half of his body was pressing on me, and half of my arm was numb from being pressed by his big hand. This guy was still sleeping soundly. His head was buried in my arms. For a moment, I didn't know whether to push his arm or his head. In the middle of this dilemma, there was a commotion downstairs. At this moment, I finally came to my senses. Today was the first day of the zombie outbreak in our city. I slapped Jackson awake, who was in my arms. The noise outside was getting louder. I went to the window, opened the curtains. I'm nearsighted, and besides, this was the 19th floor of a high-rise building. I could only vaguely see a few black shadows downstairs walking around the garden downstairs one after another. Jackson also woke up from his sleep and turned to the next bedroom to get 2 pairs of binoculars. With the binoculars, we could see the scene downstairs more clearly. There were 2 people running in front, a man and a woman. They looked like a young couple. The person chasing them with open arms and claws behind was a zombie. This couple might have gotten up early in the morning to catch the subway and didn't expect to encounter a zombie. I adjusted the magnification of the binoculars and took a closer look. Blood was seeping from the man's arm. Obviously, he had been bitten by a zombie. The bitten man mutated not long after. The woman next to him hadn't even reacted to what was happening when she was bitten by her boyfriend. Now all 3 of them had turned into zombies. I sighed and put down the binoculars. I picked up my phone and took a photo of the scene outside, then anonymously sent it to the group chat, reminding everyone not to go out during the apocalypse. This was all I could do. I couldn't be a goody two-shoes, but I definitely didn't want to be a complete bad person either. Jackson saw the message I sent in the group chat and remained silent. He turned and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Today's breakfast was very sumptuous, with red bean and Job's tears porridge, tea-flavored eggs, sweet potatoes, and steamed dumplings. The tea-flavored eggs had been soaked overnight and tasted especially delicious. The red bean and Job's tears porridge had also been soaked overnight and became soft, glutinous, and sweet. After Jackson and I finished eating, we checked the safety of the doors and windows again. Then we filled all the remaining basins and bottles at home with regular water, which could be used for washing faces, washing vegetables, and watering the flowers. We planted green peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, loofahs, and other vegetables on the balcony, as well as strawberries, cherry tomatoes, and other fruits. It had been 4 or 5 days since we planted them, but they still hadn't sprouted. I couldn't help but doubt Jackson's vegetable planting skills, but I still watered them. By the way, in order to strengthen our exercise, Jackson bought a set of fitness equipment the day before the apocalypse and placed it near the balcony. We stipulated that we must exercise for at least 1 hour every day. After watering the flowers, I downloaded a large number of movies on both our computers and iPads, while Jackson was running on the treadmill. Maybe the video I sent in the group chat deterred everyone. At noon, the community was very quiet. People in the group kept asking what had happened, and some were asking if anyone had stocked up on supplies. But now everyone was worried about their own safety and didn't care about others. Soon, at noon, the government issued an official notice, asking us to stay at home and quarantine, not to go out. There was an unknown virus spreading in the form of people biting people outside, and it was said that supplies would be distributed to everyone. For a moment, people in the group all heaved a sigh of relief, but only Jackson and I knew that this virus wasn't that simple. Sure enough, when I was cooking at noon, there were again the roars of zombies downstairs. Jackson quickly took out the binoculars. It turned out that the residents in the opposite building had spontaneously formed a team and were going downstairs to explore and buy supplies. As a result, they happened to encounter the previous 3 zombies. They originally had a chance to escape, but a man in the team pushed a girl next to him into the arms of the zombies. For a moment, the people in the team all scolded this man, which also slowed down their progress. Several people in the team instantly became the zombies' prey. Only a few people managed to break through the encirclement and run out of the community. I noticed that the man who pushed the girl also escaped. I frowned. This man didn't look like a good person at all. I conveyed the information I just saw to Jackson and said that if this man came back, it might be a bad thing. He comforted me. It's okay, even if he escaped, his surviving teammates won't forgive him. I thought about it and he was right. How could a person who betrayed his teammates be accepted by other teammates? At noon, we had rice for lunch, with 2 dishes and 1 soup. One dish was minced meat stuffed hot peppers, and the other was scrambled eggs with tomatoes. The soup was corn and spare rib soup. We both ate 2 bowls of rice before finishing the dishes. It was really delicious. After the meal, Jackson washed the dishes, and I continued to stare out of the window. The number of zombies downstairs had increased from 3 to 9, obviously. The residents in the community already knew what had happened. Downstairs in the morning, the community was so quiet that there wasn't even a bird in sight. No, it shouldn't be 9 zombies. When that team came out, I counted 10 people, only 3 people escaped. There should be 10 zombies according to reason. Our floor was high, so we could overlook the whole community. Could it be that zombie had entered our building, but all the doors of these 7 buildings were tightly closed? It shouldn't be possible. Maybe that zombie walked out of the community when we weren't paying attention. I didn't think about it too much. I yawned and went back to the sofa. Jackson brought a plate of fruits, which were our after-meal snacks. There were dragon fruits, kiwis, watermelons, cherries, grapes, etc. We bought 10 boxes of each of these fruits and stored them all in a bedroom together with the drinking water. That bedroom faced north, and because we installed an air conditioner indoors, they could be preserved for a relatively long time. Jackson and I ate the fruits while looking at our phones. Now there were videos of people biting people on all major video websites, and most people basically knew what was happening. Most people were hiding at home and not going out, and the government would also drop supplies from the air every few days. However, I observed for a few days that most people didn't go down to pick up the supplies. Maybe because it was just the beginning of the disaster and everyone still had food at home, it wasn't necessary to take the risk of going out. In the afternoon, Jackson and I each exercised for half an hour and then watched a movie about the apocalypse. The afternoon passed quickly. The zombies we had imagined weren't so scary after all. In the evening, it was my turn to cook. I happily took out beef, pork ribs, duck blood, crayfish from the freezer in the study, and also took out baby cabbage, crown daisy, enoki mushrooms, fried dough sticks, shrimp paste, lotus root slices, corn, wide noodles, and other ingredients from the freezer in the kitchen. After washing them, I placed them aside for later use. I took out a pot, poured oil into it, added the hot pot base, and boiled water. Before the water boiled, I also made 2 cups of taro sago milk tea. When everything was ready, I called Jackson over for dinner. Hot pot paired with milk tea was really fragrant. It was so delicious that I almost forgot that we were in the apocalypse. After dinner, I made a video call to my parents. They said that there were still no zombies there, but the government had issued a notice, and they had also stocked up enough food and water. They told us not to worry about them, but I still told them never to go out. If they were bitten by a zombie, there would be no turning back. My father nodded seriously at me, indicating that he would protect my mother. I tilted my head and looked at Jackson. He also firmly said that he would protect me. 10. On the 20th day of the zombie outbreak, we still had plenty of food, but some people in the community had run out of food and sent out distress signals in the group chat. I was thinking about whether to share some of our food with them and send it to each household with a drone, but as soon as I said this idea, Jackson immediately vetoed it. He knocked on my forehead with a look of meaning, being disappointed at someone's failure to meet expectations, and said, like looking at a fool, "You haven't graduated yet and don't know how sinister the society is. If we expose our location and are targeted by bad people, even though our door is an explosion-proof door, the wall isn't. If they take a hammer, they can break it in a few days. We'd better not take this risk. Fortunately, you reminded me, otherwise, would have made a mistake. I'm sorry." I hung my head in, and tears almost came out. If it weren't for Jackson being reborn and coming back with the memories of the previous life to help me, I might have been killed by others. Long ago, Jackson hugged me and comforted me. "Okay, nothing has happened. From now on, we have to discuss things before we do them. Okay." I lay in Jackson's arms and felt an inexplicable sense of peace. Suddenly, ding, a message was sent in the group chat again, and then several messages popped up continuously. Jackson and I were curious and picked up our phones from the coffee table to look at the messages in the group chat. It was sent by a black profile picture user in the group. "I have some food. Do you need it?" That boy didn't note down the specific building number, only marked Building 3. It was obvious that he was being very cautious. Then below, a group of people were scrambling to ask the boy if he could share some with them. The boy continued, "Now I've divided the food into 5 packs. I can probably only give it to 5 people. First come, first served." For a moment, the people in Building 3 in the group were complacent. They were the closest, so they naturally had a way to get it. The people on other floors all sighed. "I've put the food at the stairway on the first floor. You can go down and get it." I thought it was a bit strange. He could have put it on the 3rd floor. Going to the 1st floor seemed like a bit of a detour. Jackson also seemed strange about this move. He said uncertainly, "I don't know why, but I feel like something is not right." Just as we were frowning and staring at the messages in the group chat, there were several screams downstairs. Jackson and I immediately ran to the balcony and opened the curtains. Directly below us was the unit door of Building 3. The unit door, which was usually tightly closed, was now making a dull crashing sound. The screams just now came from inside. People in the group were constantly asking what had happened. I glanced at it briefly and suddenly found that most of the people sending messages were from other buildings. There were very few from Building 3 at this time. Another message popped up. It was from that boy. After reading the content, I couldn't help but take a deep breath. Although the weather wasn't very cold, I suddenly felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. Jackson sighed, returned to the sofa, and sat down. He took a sip of tea. I sat next to him and analyzed what had just happened. The missing zombie was actually that boy's girlfriend. He's taking revenge for his girlfriend. The group chat also stopped with that boy's message. obviously. Everyone was shocked by the boy's actions. It turned out that the missing zombie was the boy's girlfriend. A few days ago, the two of them ran out of food at home. The boy was going to take the risk of going down to get food. When he came back, he almost got bitten by a zombie. The girl couldn't bear to see the boy going to get food alone, so while the boy was asleep, she made an appointment with the people in the same building to go out and look for food. As a result, she was pushed into the arms of the zombies by a man in the same team. When the boy woke up and found that the girl was gone, he happened to see the girl being pushed into the zombie horde by others while looking out of the window. The other people in the same team didn't stop it either. The boy was heartbroken, so he secretly went downstairs at night to open the unit door and trapped the girl in the basement. Now, except for this boy, everyone in Building 3 had been infected by the zombies. What was even more terrifying was that the boys somehow managed to drive each zombie back into their respective homes. I thought of the three people who hadn't come back yet and thought that when they returned home, they would surely be bitten into zombies by their family members. Now, through the window, I could still see that in the living rooms of some households in the opposite building, zombies were walking around completely without any sense of purpose. When those three people came back, they would become the food in the mouths of their relatives. 11. In the blink of an eye, a day passed, and those three people still hadn't come back. All the zombies downstairs were in Building 3, and the unit door of Building 3 was tightly closed. The zombies wouldn't come out to attack. When night came, each household quietly went out to look for food. Unfortunately, after many days, the food they obtained was very little. Jackson and I discussed it and decided to secretly use a drone to hang food and place it at the entrance of each unit building in the middle of the night without being discovered by others. This way, we could help others and not be discovered. Soon, someone noticed the food. We used the drone to deliver food for 3 days, ensuring that each person had enough food for about half a month. We also wrote words of encouragement on the notes. Fortunately, there were not many people in each building, and people's qualities hadn't completely disappeared. Everyone took their share very consciously. We comforted each other in the group chat, and everyone was full of hope for the future. I noticed that the boy in Building 3 wasn't dead, because I specifically placed food on the air conditioner outdoor unit on his floor. The next day, there was a piece of paper on the air conditioner outdoor unit. Jackson saw 2 big words through the telescope. Thank you. In the end of the world, although we are not saints, helping our fellow humans can always bring us some comfort. 12. Perhaps we were too blatant in helping others. Or perhaps we exposed our location when stocking up on supplies before. On the 30th day of the zombie outbreak, I came to the window as usual to observe. There were several figures shaking at the entrance of the community. After a while, they disappeared into the shadows. I didn't take it to heart, just thinking that it was someone in the community going out to look for food. Until 10 o'clock, there was a rustling sound outside the door, followed by a series of knocks. I looked through the peephole and saw that it was my 3 roommates. One of them, however, had purple-colored lips, clearly bitten by a zombie. Before I could recover from the shock of how they found me, my roommate Hazel's soft voice rang out, "Adeline, please save us. You know we've always been nice to you. Open the door and let us in. Give us food and water." Another roommate chimed in, "We tried so hard to find you here. If it wasn't for looking for you, Nova wouldn't have been bitten by a zombie. You can't just leave us to die." Open the door quickly. Just as I was about to waver and my hand was about to reach for the doorknob, a memory suddenly flashed through my mind. In the memory, I opened the door against Jackson's advice, let the injured Nova and the other 2 roommates move in, and provided them with food and drink. Jackson tried to persuade me but to no avail, so he vacated a room for them. Jackson in the memory was extremely weak. It was precisely because of this that while I was asleep, Nova bit Jackson, who was powerless to resist. In order not to infect me, Jackson committed suicide by jumping off the building, and I was tied up by them. When the last of our food ran out, they cut off my flesh piece by piece. I bit my tongue and committed suicide in despair and regret. The knocking on the door continued. After waking up from the memory, I withdrew my hand from the doorknob as if electrocuted and added several locks. The roommates left dejectedly when they saw that knocking was useless. However, how could they leave? Jackson had somehow used a drone to attract the nearby zombies to the downstairs, looking down from the building. A large number of zombies were rushing towards the downstairs following the flesh on the drone. When they went downstairs, they would be the zombies' lunch. I looked at Jackson. He was standing by the window, with his back to the sunlight. I suddenly realized that the current Jackson had experienced 2 lives, and I had known nothing about it before. I walked over and hugged him tightly, crying uncontrollably in his arms. "You're such a liar." He gently stroked my head, and a doting laugh came from above. "I won't lie to you anymore." 13. Yes, Jackson had deceived me before. In fact, the previous life was far more cruel than what he had said before. In the previous life, during the escape, although the roommates had attracted the zombies, Jackson still managed to bring me to a safe place. However, a zombie still bit his arm. In order not to be infected, Jackson promptly cut off the infected part, resulting in a low immune system. So when the roommates came to the door, being soft-hearted, "Let the wolves in," roommate Nova deliberately bit Jackson's arm. Before turning into a zombie, Hazel came up with a brilliant idea. She asked Jackson to end his own life, claiming that they would take good care of me. Jackson, who was so proud, was forced to jump off the building by 3 girls. They said, "You're now infected by the zombie virus and, unlike our Nova, you can't control yourself from biting people." He thought that this could ensure my safety. At the last moment of his life, he was still humbly begging the roommates to take good care of me, but he didn't know that less than 3 days after he jumped off the building, I also committed suicide by biting my tongue in hatred. In this life, Jackson found me early and arranged everything. While we were cooking the hot pot, there were continuous screams downstairs. From then on, everything in the previous life finally came to an end. 14. On the 5th day, I woke up extremely early this day. Jackson was still sound asleep. We were on a high floor and were very sensitive to outside sounds. Although we had previously reinforced the sound-proof cotton, this time the sound was extremely penetrating. I rubbed my eyes and came to the balcony, opening the window. Bang, bang, bang. It was gunfire. Jackson's voice came from behind. He didn't know when he woke up and was standing behind me. I immediately closed the window and looked in the direction of the gunfire. It was at the entrance of the community. A military vehicle was slowly approaching. The zombies around it that had been attracted by the vehicle had been killed by their gunshots. I slowly let out a sigh of relief and muttered, "Those downstairs aren't the military but social people." Jackson's voice came from behind. He didn't know when he woke up and was standing behind me. "Look." Jackson handed me his phone. It was a chat box, a conversation between him and the boy from Building 3. After reading the chat history, I suddenly understood. Those downstairs aren't the military but social people. The boy had long noticed that vehicle. He keenly discovered that the person sitting in the passenger seat was the one who had killed his girlfriend. He reminded us not to act rashly. Those people must have had ill intentions. Jackson had also informed the people in the group chat early. With our unity over the past few days, we all reached an agreement. Don't make a sound and don't go out. Sure enough, after those people drove the car into the community, a large crowd of people got out. They were wearing military uniforms, but they clearly weren't regular soldiers. Their steps were unsteady, their formations were disorderly, and some even had tattoos. The leader, who looked presentable, held a megaphone and appealed to the community, asking each household to bring their food and come down to gather and go to the government's shelter. But we weren't stupid. However, there were always stupid people courting death. Young couple from Building 5 next door came down and walked straight towards those people. A lackey next to the leader saw someone coming down and immediately handed clean water and food to the couple. He also put clean clothes on them and led them to the back of the car. The leader continued to shout, "Everyone has seen that we are sincere. Hurry up and bring your food and water and come down. We will gather and go to the new shelter." No one else went down. After a while, a lackey behind the car ran to the leader and whispered something in his ear. The leader's face changed slightly, and he looked towards our floor. I was so scared that I immediately put down the telescope. Jackson glanced at me and comforted me. "Don't be afraid. He can't see us." I guess the couple must have known that it was us who sent the food and water and told that person. He paused for a moment and continued, "I guess they will start searching the building soon." Sure enough, seeing that we didn't respond, those people took a lot of weapons from the back of the car and walked straight towards our building. I couldn't help but feel worried. "Don't be afraid. There's something to deal with them." Just as he was speaking, a loud noise came from the opposite side. it turned out that the boy on the opposite side had cleverly opened the unit door. Originally, the zombies had been attracted to the unit door by the gunshots. At this time, they rushed out in large numbers and surged towards those people. They were so surprised by the sudden appearance of the zombies that before they could react to shoot, some people had already died in the mouths of the zombies, one by one, group by group. Finally, someone reacted and started shooting. Although they had guns, they still couldn't defeat the increasing number of zombies. Soon, only the leader and his lackey were left. There were only 5 or 6 zombies left, but they had run out of bullets. The two of them sat in the driver's seat, trembling with fear, completely losing their previous arrogant appearance. The two of them and the 5 zombies stared at each other in a standoff for a long time. The glass of that car was really well made. The 5 zombies couldn't break it even by hitting their heads against it. They could only scratch and claw at the glass, making a hissing sound. At this time, a loud singing of the March of the Volunteers came. It was the military. This time, it was the real military. The zombies heard the singing and immediately climbed down from the glass. They opened their mouths and continued to scratch and claw on the ground. Unfortunately, it was a helicopter flying in the sky, and they couldn't reach it. I saw a white powder being sprinkled from the air. The zombies immediately lost their fighting ability and actually lay on the ground, losing their mobility, and those 2 people also lost consciousness. The helicopter circled in the air and landed in an open area. More than a dozen soldiers got off the plane. This time, they were the Real soldiers. They marched with neat steps and saluted the people who opened their windows and looked out. Then they quickly cleaned up the scene, loaded the zombies and the people onto the plane, and they brought us food and water. A voice came from the loudspeaker. Comrades, the surrounding zombies have been cleared by us. We will airdrop clean food, water, and medicine